Thank you, everyone, for being here this evening for public comment. We have about 92 speakers signed up, so I'm just going to ask everybody to be mindful of their time. And also, I'm going to call like 5 people at a time, so if you could line up, that way we have fewer people waiting in between. And we'll probably take a brief break at some point as well. I just don't want to surprise you with that, but we're going to be here for a while. So anyhow, we'll start this evening. Please look at the rules of decorum too, and please follow those. Octavia Rainey is first.
Good afternoon. Good evening. First of all, I wanted to say thank you.
Could you speak into the microphone,
Okay.
Octavia?
Stop, my minute's over. First of all, I want to say thank you to the city manager for apologizing for the Christmas parade. It takes character, and you have exhibited your character. Thank you so much, and don't ever change. I would like to show a tape of David Walker talking about more.
Good morning, David Walker, Department of Transportation Transit Division. And just a quick follow-up to some information we provided at the last subcommittee meeting. We, in collaboration with our contractor for Go Raleigh, reached out to 3 different security companies in the Raleigh area, had conversations with them about providing additional service within the Go Raleigh transit station. All of those companies we talked to relayed that they recommended we have armed security officers on site. Preferably, we would like to have company police, but unfortunately, that's just those staff aren't available with the private security vendors. They try to get them as frequently as they can, but it's just hard to come by. So the armed security is the next best solution. And noting that armed security does not have police powers to arrest or detain.
Thank you for that clarity. That helps a lot. I appreciate that. I'm also interested in if you can share why the security companies wanted to be armed. If they're not company police and they're not empowered with the same powers as police, why would they want to be armed, or why would they need to be armed?
I can say that that's probably I may need to come back to you with a response on that.
Okay,
I may
let's
need to
stop it
confer
right
with them and
there.
get their professional opinions.
First of all, I would like to say any type of security force that comes down to the bus station, if they are afraid, they will shoot first and ask questions later. And that's wrong. That's wrong. You should not have any security down there that's afraid. A person that's afraid will shoot you. And I got a problem with that, a serious problem, because then it's stand your ground. And that is hard to prove with the district attorney of Wake County. So I'm asking you not to bring on armed security. They're afraid. And if they are afraid of me, and I'm a black person with millions of others down there, then what do you really think? Second thing I want to talk about, I wish the city would stop playing the country music down there when you're coming out of the bus station heading to Wilmington Street. That music is awful. It's country music. It's country music. So what do you play it for? To deter the black folk? They still come. So I want to say, if you went to hip hop, then you need to change that music to music I like. I like. But that music is terrible. And no armed security at Moore Square.
So I'm going to ask that people refrain from applauding in between. That's just going to make this longer, and I don't want you speaking at midnight. So I'm going to call up the next few people. Woody Biggs, Paula Hoffman, Chris Crew, Lisa Huguette, and James Bledsoe. If you could all come up.
I am here tonight to talk about noise. In Glenwood South, we have been very suspect about the numbers being reported by the city. And we were right to be suspect, as we now have evidence the city has downplayed and grossly underreported noise complaint calls. Let's look at some numbers for 2023 to date. As you can see on the screen, there is some discrepancy. Some residents have been keeping noise call logs for years, and some started this year. From January 1st to October 26th, the resident logs show, and this is just a few residents, 106 calls for the 600 block of Glenwood, while the city reports 6. The city reports a total of only 17 calls for the 6 blocks of Glenwood South in 2003. I have an email from someone in the city stating the data they found shows 35 noise complaint calls for Glenwood just in October. Again, the city only reports 17 calls for 2003. I think the only true number reported by the city is 0 citations given. Every citizen and every news outlet who unwittingly reported the city provided incorrect statistics to the public should be outraged. The city is looking at a new news ordinance, but it is just window dressing, as the RPD doesn't enforce the current noise ordinance. 2 examples. On October 27th, a resident called about a bar in the 600 block of Glenwood, and the responding officer told her it was a special weekend and they're allowed to play loud music. On October 19th, a resident went to a bar, again in the 600 block, where an RPD officer was standing outside and asked about the loud noise. The officer responded they had a special event permit, which was false. And if it had been true, the bar still has to abide by the noise ordinance. And he told the resident to move along. I know a 26-year-old girl who was at the bar on the patio, and she said it was ridiculously loud. Lieutenant Manukas responded to a resident inquiry saying RPD found the music level not unreasonable. We have to contemplate why the city and RPD are what they're doing. Incorrect statistics are being given out, and the noise ordinance is not being enforced. There needs to be an investigation to determine who is behind this. I was told pre-pandemic by a source of mine in the city that people high up in the city do not want to make any changes or do anything about the noise. So this is not just an RPD enforcement issue. The council, the public, and the media deserve answers. A footnote, the numbers I stated from the resident logs are from a very few residents who keep logs and provided me the information. Therefore, the actual noise complaint numbers would be much higher if all residents kept logs and if the city provided accurate call numbers. And in the documentation I provided, it has documentation for what I've said.
Thank you, Woody.
Thank you.
Paula Hoffman.
Is it going up there? Okay, thank you. In my view, the UDO opens a Pandora's box for our neighborhood and likely other neighborhoods in Raleigh. The Sunset Hills neighborhood was platted in the early 1940s using the narrow, deep, 40-foot wide lots typical of many older Raleigh neighborhoods. The lots were the building blocks, but not the way the neighborhood was built or ever intended to be built. The land seller imposed covenants that required each structure, whether a single-family home or duplex, to be built on 2 lots. The result is a grid of properties today with 80 to 120-foot frontages and a third to a half acre each. Sunset Hills was not zoned until later, when our area was zoned R6 between areas of R10 and R4. The covenants protected our lot sizes until they were allowed to expire around 2008. In 2009, Sunset Hills property owners had the neighborhood rezoned R4 to match the way it is built. Support was overwhelming, with 84 of 106 owners signing the petition. In my view, the UDO adopted in 2013, perhaps inadvertently, opens a back door to undercut the zoning rules. My example is this 1435 Duplin Road property. As you can see, this property, where a house has stood for 70 years with 120-foot frontage, is made up of 3 40-foot frontage lots, shown by the dashed lines pointed out by red arrows. Based on the UDO, the city has allowed the owner, a builder, to divide the property into 2 60-foot frontage lots, where R4 zoning requires a minimum of 65 feet. All other properties on the street have at least 80-foot frontage. This UDO exception also allowed these lots to be less than a quarter acre in surface area, as required by the R4 zoning. The reason for this goes back to the original 1944 40-foot lots that existed on paper only. The city's argument is that allowing 2 2 non-conforming 60-foot lots is preferable to having 3 non-conforming 40-foot lots when we started with an existing conforming lot. Such an approach will open a Pandora's box for my neighborhood and for other Raleigh neighborhoods as well. What will be the breaking point in an R4 neighborhood? 55 feet? 50 feet? This is what our current neighborhood is built like. Within a block of our R4 zoning is R6 and R10 zoning, where duplexes and small homes were built. This provided for a diverse neighborhood and a diverse population in our schools. This is what is happening to our neighborhood today, and what will become of our R4 zoned neighborhood if this back door is left open. These new row houses do not diversify the neighborhood, nor address any missing middle, because these new row houses cost more than $1 million apiece.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chris Crew?
Good evening. Preservation. 60 years ago, Raleigh development took a destructive turn, and since then, in the name of progress, the city and the state governments have conspired to erase hundreds of historic structures from the landscape. Many of these structures were solid, old-fashioned, charming, if ordinary, residential structures, and more than a few were architectural masterpieces. All of them are gone forever, and the land they stood on has for the last 50 years served as street-level parking. In my observation since 2008, the bulk of these parking lots see daily occupancy rates of about 20%. Zoning decisions and variances over the past 10 years and more recently related to the BRT bait and switch doom hundreds more. Many, like the homes lost in the 60s and 70s to the urban renewal fad, are naturally occurring affordable housing. With a good number of both ordinary and monumental structures threatened by zoning decisions approved by this panel, it is time to act. These actions should focus on 3 strategies. Use your influence to induce the State Property Office and Raleigh Planning and Development to cooperate on transfer of title of these parking lots to bona fide preservation organizations for the express purpose of saving historic monuments such as Elmwood and the Hubert Royster House and the no less important ordinary houses of the late 19th and early 20th centuries that are doomed to density-driven financial ventures benefiting a select few. Use your influence to make preservation of our communities a ruling principle in all zoning decisions. Decouple from rapid transit efforts the preemptive multi-story upzoning of 744 parcels in the New Bern corridor. Taller by right upzoning will drive taxes higher and luxury development into the corridor, destroying historic communities and eliminating any appetite for construction of new affordable units. Here's a quote from Smart Growth America, June 2016. The Wake County Transit Plan proposes to bring frequent bus rapid transit service to some of Raleigh's lowest wealth communities, says Ken Bowers. With the plan approved by the county, now is the time to ensure that these investments benefit rather than displace households and families who stand to gain from the increased access and mobility improved transit service will provide. Now more than ever, right, councilors? Mayor Pro Tem, your district, it's your opportunity to work with your fellow members and stop this. Councilors, you are the responsible party. The ability and duty are yours. You are the key players in ensuring that the history of Raleigh, its cultures, its communities, its monuments and traditions survive for the benefit, the edification, and the pleasure of future generations. Thank you. We'll see you at the Christmas parade.
Lisa Huguet?
It's Hewitt. Good evening. Talking about affordable housing tonight may seem unimportant given the ongoing invasion in Ukraine, the atrocities being committed in the Middle East, and the daily crime, gunfire, and homelessness in Raleigh. Nevertheless, I'm going to keep fighting for it because affordable housing is a powerful instrument for building positive community outcomes for much of what ails us. One key aspect is the impact on crime reduction. It's shown that affordable, stable housing contributes to community safety because residents are more likely to be invested in the well-being of their neighborhoods. I have seen this firsthand with the habitat communities I have helped build. Reduced financial strain also mitigates the desperation that may lead to criminal activities, creating environments where residents feel safe and engaged. Affordable housing plays a pivotal role in mental health by reducing stressors associated with housing insecurity. It goes without saying that stable housing provides a foundation for improved mental well-being, fostering resilience and a sense of security. This leads to lower rates of mental health issues and related challenges, like surprise visits from the police. Affordable housing also intersects with the issue of incarceration. By addressing root causes such as homelessness and financial instability, affordable housing can contribute to a decrease in the likelihood of individuals becoming entangled in our criminal justice system. Stable housing becomes a preventative measure against cycles of incarceration, promoting rehabilitation and community reintegration. For childhood learning, secure housing is foundational. Studies show that children in stable homes have better cognitive and intellectual abilities. This creates a positive cycle, leading to individuals that can contribute to the community and prosper in the community. Yet, the city continues to prioritize parks, bike paths, art installations, more riot gear for our police, over desperately needed affordable housing. You have got to move the needle. You've got to move it faster. I know you've got an issue with doing this with the NCGA, and I know Dare County right now has that issue because the state has now made it illegal for any of the city's ability to regulate local zoning conditions. And this was over a fight over an affordable housing project. So I know it, and I understand that, but please do what you can. Because ultimately, affordable housing is a transformative capacity. It extends beyond providing a roof over one's head. It acts as a catalyst for community-wide improvements. This isn't a nice to have. It's essential, and we need it today. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have James Bledsoe. After that, Don Lewis, Andrea Fennell, Adam Masad, Robert Kortz, Kim Shriver, and Matthew Brown.
Good evening, Council. My following statement is my own and not the opinion shared by the Department of Defense. Safety is a word that has come up a lot from the city. On November 2nd, I woke up to being tagged on social media and seeing news that I couldn't believe was true. Not even a week's notice and no alternatives were given to the veteran community before city staff and this council told over 50,000 plus veterans who live in Wake County that you had canceled the Veterans Day Parade. Your city staff then went on to say that they had made a mistake. As a 19-year combat veteran of the United States Army, I can tell you that I have made some mistakes in my career. As we all have in our daily lives, we do it every day. A mistake is taking a left when you should take a right. A mistake is leaving bread in the toaster. Dad gets burned. What isn't a mistake is canceling an event meant to honor our nation's heroes and service members who chose to give themselves up to a greater cause, and quite a few of them gave up limbs or more. As the Capitol, you set the tone for the state, which is thus perceived by the nation. You spat in the face of every veteran in our city, state, and country when you canceled the parade that was under the ruse of safety. Although you had months to deliberate this cancellation, you intentionally chose only a few days. That disrespect not only has been shown to our veterans, but also our first responders. Newly elected council members excluded, crime has continued to rise since you all took office. Raleigh's population has boomed, but RPD remains 100 officers short-staffed. RPD pay remains uncompetitive, and the pay scale is broken and is so low that in 2017, 97% of first responders couldn't afford to live in the city. I've given you a simple fix to these problems over the last 3 elections, which would fix stopgapping, pay leapfrogging, etc. And much like the growing crime waves that have hit Raleigh in the last year, to include the breaking of my house last week, you've chosen to ignore it. Therefore, tonight, I am announcing my candidacy for the Raleigh City Council large seat to take a tough on crime stance that this council has chosen to ignore. Therefore, I will end my speech, and if you all wish to see any more information, visit jamesbledsoe.com. Thank you.
Okay, John Lewis. Is John Lewis here? Andrea Fennell? Adam Masad? Is Adam here? Okay, thank you. After that is Robert Courts, Kim Shreve, and Matthew Brown.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. How you doing? I'm a member of the Taxi Cab Association of Raleigh, and I'm here to find out from Michael Moore what he have done regarding our increases in the taxi fares. That was brought up 2 months ago, and we haven't heard nothing yet. We haven't had a raise since 2006. That's over how many years now? And we're still waiting to hear from you guys. Don't want to get too much into it. Now we have an issue with Go Access Raleigh, the new program, EcoLane software. Their maps they don't want to tell us what maps they're using to calculate our prices. We bring it up to David Walker. He says, bring it up to EcoLane. Now EcoLane says no vendors can call them. But who do we get the answer from? That's the magic question. David Walker, no answer. Sean Abrams, no answer. Do we also, basically, now they're putting the trips in virtual, so we can't even put them on certain cars. The times we put them on cars, the person's late to wherever they're going. It's a very big issue. We cannot get nothing done this way. This new system needs to be, tuned by now. So I've basically spoken to Sean Abrams regarding trips. I put a handicap van on a year and a half ago. I got 2 customers for this handicap van. $20,000 for a van, $7,000 insurance. Spoke to Sean Abrams. He says the customers choose the customer. If you're a new customer into the program, how do you know what company to choose? They're delegated directly from CSR, customer service reps. This issue has basically caused me a bankrupt right now. Thank you.
Robert Courts?
Excuse me, Madam Mayor, esteemed council, my fellow Raleigh citizens, my name is Robert Courts, and for the past 20 years, I have been the self-proclaimed champion for local businesses. It was in this advocacy that I was contacted by Richard Spirason, who is a retired U.S. Army and president of the Wake County Council of Veteran Organizations, and one of the organizers of the Veterans Day Parade. Mr. Spirason asked me to read this statement to y'all. I apologize for not being here this evening. I have a prior commitment. We, the parade organizers, understand why aggressive actions needed to be taken after the events of last year's Christmas parade. But we don't understand why we, the parade organizers, were not consulted on how to fix it. Safety is everyone's concern. All I am asking for is a seat at the table to discuss how to fix it and bring back the parade history that we have. There are currently over 50,000 veterans in Wake County and thousands more that work in the city and surrounding area. This past week was a very important time for our veteran community, and the lack of the parade was a significant loss. Our veterans are getting older, and many are disabled and can't walk the 1.5 miles up Vayeville Street. We need vehicles in our parade to recognize and honor those who served and protected our country. Thank you for your time, Richard Spirason.
Kim Shreve? Kim? Okay.
Hi, my name is Kim Shreve, and I've been riding the bus for a long time, and I'm here to tell you about 6 months ago that there was a group of about 5 young black kids hanging around Moore Square, and their group got larger and larger, and the supervisors would not do anything about them, and as the group grew, they were staying on the back of the buses, and they were smoking and drinking liquor, and saying MF every other word on the back of the buses. And the supervisors at Moore Square would not do nothing at all about them. And they started robbing people of all ages in the park, and they started hitting them and beating them. And when they started threatening me, I told them that they better leave me alone. And as a group, they ran by me and they grabbed my phone and they threw it on the sidewalk. And they broke it, and when I turned them in, I was trespassed from Moore Square for about 3 months for speaking up about them. And then on October the 5th, the supervisor, his name is Craig Wogby, he came up to me at a bus stop, and he orally trespassed me, and then he stuck me in jail, and I said, what am I being stuck in jail for? And I said, I haven't done anything, and he stuck me in on a psych unit, and they stripped me down naked, and I'm on medicine for epilepsy, and I go to Duke Clinic. And luckily, when I was a kid, my grandfather had a whole lot of money, and that's how I got to go to Duke Clinic, because it cost a whole lot, and the medicine is a whole lot, and my doctor's about $20,000 to $30,000 a year, and they kept me in there for about 7 to 10 days, and the judge had told me on the monitor I could go home, and they would not let me get out for no reason, and they would not let me have my medicine, and I'm supposed to take that medicine 2 times a day, and it's for seizures, and I've had seizures, but that's all right. That's fine. I've been way over your head to Judge Flanagan, a federal judge, and she said she's going to straighten you out.
Thank you.
You're going to straighten out. She said she's
Matthew?
You've been blowing me off.
Good evening. Thank you for your service, and thank you for letting me speak. Parades are rich expressions of a city's culture, creativity, and community spirit. They are the signature event for many cities: Philadelphia's Mummers Parade, New Orleans' Mardi Gras parades, Savannah's St. Patrick's Parade, San Francisco's Chinese New Year Parade. And Raleigh, for 78 years, had the Christmas Parade, the largest parade of any kind between Washington and Atlanta. Thousands participating, 80,000 lining the streets to watch it, and 200,000 more watching it on television. I want to thank at least 3 members of this council who are willing to support a motion to allow vehicles in the Christmas parade: Councilors Melton, Jones, and Black. Unfortunately, nobody made that motion, so staff was allowed to ban vehicles. Then, predictably, staff banned vehicles in the Veterans Day parade. Then, predictably, the organizers canceled the parade. They did not want 85-year-old veterans having heart attacks trying to march up Fayetteville Street. Talk about a dangerous situation. The city issued a statement saying, quote, "We expect that parades will look different in the future. If that means parades will have no vehicles, we will likely have no parades. This year we will have a smaller Christmas parade, but we might not have one next year. As I mentioned last month, the floats sponsored by businesses were the major fundraiser for Shop Local Raleigh, which organizes the parade. Without that fundraiser, Shop Local Raleigh might not survive. Other parades will become so small nobody will come out to see them. Remember, the city does not put on the parades. The citizens do, and it is already challenging. If the city makes it more challenging, the citizens will give up." Among the reasons given to ban vehicles was the proposed NC Senate bill requiring cities to inspect parade vehicles within 7 days of the parade. But that bill was sent to committee in April and hasn't been seen since. That's what Senate leadership does when they have no intention of passing a bill. There is no way our legislature wants to kill Christmas and Veterans Day parades across the state. And if a rich city like Raleigh is unable to perform the inspections, how can poor cities like Rocky Mount or Goldsboro perform them? Speaking of politics, next year's possibly canceled Christmas parade and Veterans Day parade will be in November, the same month as city council elections. Wouldn't you like to be seen as the heroes who saved our parades rather than the Grinches who canceled them? Please direct staff to allow vehicles. Thank you.
Next we have Nicole Williams, Sergey Kessel, Laurelyn Bailey, Shane Collins, and Caroline Keefe.
Good evening, Council, Raleigh citizens. There are many things that I could address tonight. The fact that I'm still not housed, the fact that sexual harassment still continues, the fact that there are still no porta potties and people still utilize the streets for bathrooms, the desperate need for affordable housing. There are many things going on in the world, and we should keep a watchful eye and express our concern. But let us not forget that there are things that we are challenged to heal and challenged domestically, especially in our local community. At the risk of making people feel at ease, I'd like to talk about trafficking. It is here in North Carolina, in Raleigh, in plain sight, and people are turning their heads. They don't know what to do or say. They feel uncomfortable, but the refusal and the regret to have these types of hard discussions and possible resolves is exactly what leads to the escalation of the damage and prolonged duration of these situations. I have seen women and men walking around in a city in desperate situations, no shoes, no food, looking as if they're beholden by other individuals. People pass by in pity and somewhat disgust at these people without asking if they're okay, if they need anything, or offering a gesture of acknowledgement even. People assume that, as usual, drugs or bad choices were the case, that some bad judgment on their part placed them in these situations. You should know that not all people in homelessness landed there because of bad choices or even any choice at all. Some of these people have been forced into lifestyles by way of kidnapping or fleeing abuse. They have been drugged or forced onto drugs to keep it up. Everything has been taken away from them so that they are kept from having their needs met and are forced to lend themselves to unthinkable acts, being deprived of clothes, money, food, family, friends, and bare necessities. And it's not just foreigners fleeing other nations or turmoil, but your everyday ordinary child riding a bike, or a hiker, or a traveler in an unknown location being stripped from their normal lives, kidnapped from other states, and placed in worlds none of us could ever fathom, places where darkness becomes the norm and rescue becomes rare and less hopeful. These people are your sisters, your cousins, aunts, mothers, neighbors, brothers, and nephews who have gone missing. These people have lost hope. They have lost their voice. They have lost the ability to reason, and they live in constant fear. But if given the opportunity, who knows how they could find their way or what life they could create. But the fear people have that they can't, or of where they've been or what they're capable of, prevents them in this from happening. We, the community, owe it to them to help them as they dwindle and win in the keep of a stranger or abuser. We owe them kindness. We owe them sincere concern. We owe them another chance at life. I don't know all of the answers or the resolution, but this is an attempt to start to something more than inadequate response we are having now. These people could be you, and as such, you should respond in a way that you would want someone if it were you. To my young friend who was caught in a trap, suffered this life, you are loved,
Nicole,
you are missed.
Nicole,
I'm thankful I met you, and
your
you're not
time is up.
forgotten.
Thank you. Sergey Kessel.
I'm Sergey Kessel.
Please speak
I'm
into the
Sergey Kessel.
microphone. Thank
I'm
you.
a construction professional, more than 35 years. You know what it is? You have a Matthew Courier who make a presentation about my street and he lied to you. And also we have a Michael Moore who is sitting over there. I call every day to him, city manager and Michael Moore. I want to set up appointment and talk to him about my street. They screw up and they're supposed to fix it, because Michael Moore, he have a wrong degree. He have like architectural degree, for his job need a civil engineer, structural engineer. I can show you the video if you don't guess. Look at this.
This is a car like a blocking, and mailman can even move around. See, it's just transportation department put restrictions, and he tried to maneuver and pass it by, but like no clearance, because somebody blocked the car. So like a car is blocking.
It's not functional.
See,
this is reality.
Let me see what is going on right now. And we're suffering right here. We have a standard road right here, standard. It's just nothing going on, and still a problem. And see, he's supposed to move his car right now. Make sure somebody can drive by. How it's happened like this? See. See what is the problem is? Mailman can even move. Okay, now have a clearance. He turn around and blocking again. See how transportation department fix the problem? He just turn around and blocking again, and nobody can move again. And this is a corner problem. I live in a standard road. Somehow it's affect me, and transportation department want to shut me up. Look at this, just blocking again.
Problem is, if something not fit, make it fit. It's geometry and simple geometry and mathematics, all construction, not politics. If somebody told me it's a politics, when I study construction, no politics, only geometry and mathematics. I can show you another video. How many videos supposed to show you till somebody? And by the way, this sign supposed to be temporary till somebody fix the road. We pay property tax, and part of the money included to fix the road. Look at the second video. I have maybe 20 videos, maybe more. What I supposed to do? Just collect the video.
This is another car try to pass it by for today, and he just waiting till somebody just moving. See?
It's like a 3 car in a couple hours. Oh wow!
Thank you.
Yeah, just
Laura Lynn Bailey. Shane Collins.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. I'm Shane Collins from North Hills. I brought some popcorn tonight. I'm going to talk about Star Trek and affordable housing and meaningful listening. Tonight, I'd like to speak on the voyage of the Starship Enterprise, its continuing mission to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no one has gone before. Tonight, I'd like to challenge Council to boldly go where Council and Mayor have not gone before. Meaningful listening. I'd like to speak on meaningful listening to the needs and requests of importance of affordable housing for our police and fire and other city workers who make our city livable. Meaningful listening involves listening, hearing, taking action. City-held listening sessions to gather ideas from citizens regarding the missing middle. To date, nothing has been done to change missing middle since those sessions, and Council is vowed to secrecy since those sessions, and now due to the lawsuit brought against the city's missing middle program, City Council cannot comment on any actions that they will or will not take on missing middle. Meanwhile, missing middle changes allow perfectly habitable buildings to be torn down so that unaffordable multi or single unit complexes or businesses can be built with rezoning. Yet another misguided notion involves the budget and brews, whereby city staff or perhaps community engagement department again held listening sessions to gather input from citizens on upcoming budget for 2024. I attended one of those sessions and asked how I could submit my concerns and suggestions. I was told to have a seat, eat pizza, and wait. There was no way for me to provide input, but they did say I would be contacted via email to provide my input. I didn't receive an email. In closing, the city has time and again listened, maybe professed thoughts and prayers, gathered notes, but produced nothing in the way of concrete action. I urge the council and mayor to boldly go where none have gone before. Take action on resident concerns. Popcorn is to tide you over, since no music tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Caroline Keefe.
Hi, I'm here with 4 others from my school, and we have a presentation prepared for us to talk in order. Would it be in any way possible for us to move the queue? We could move backwards so we can all go together.
Who else is here with you?
Lana Joyce, Allison Lee, Dylan Davis, and Michael McElry.
Are you all doing this together?
Yes.
If the rest?
We each signed up separately, but we would gladly move back.
All right, if you would all come up? Could I just have everybody's name again?
I'm Caroline Keefe.
I'm Allison Lee. Lana Joyce.
Dylan Davis.
Michael McElry.
Okay.
Hi, so again, my name is Allison Lee, and to the council members, good evening. I am here with the Community Research and Activism course of the fall semester of 2023, and we are here today to talk about sustainable housing and encourage the practice and use of it. How do we go to the next slide? So, who are we and why do we care? So, the the Community Research and Activism course allows our entire class to research and advocate for a specific local issue in our community, and we decided to focus on sustainable housing due to increasing climate change. So we, each one of us, basically interviewed special experts and specialists in green building, such as builders, local authority figures across Cary, Raleigh, and Durham, and we have learned about sustainable green buildings, practices, execution, and most importantly, its benefits to our community. And we think that it is vital that we act now on the sustainable housing in our local community before the climate change becomes worse. We're encouraging you all to reach out to local high schools or maybe organizations to basically begin to enforce sustainable housing in the triangle, essentially.
Okay, so good evening, council members. My name is Dylan Davis, and I'm a junior at Cary Academy. So I just wanted to talk about the issue of what we have going on. And so we use a ton of energy to heat and cool our buildings and houses, and this is just causing many carbon emissions. And I don't know if many of you noticed, but in New York, there's this clock, and it shows us how much time we have until there's irreversible damage due to pollution and emissions in our atmosphere. And honestly, it's scary to look at, knowing that the time is counting down, almost like a clock. It's like your sudden death, or not death, sorry, but sudden doom coming to end. Then I just wanted to talk about when we talked to staff from the city of Raleigh. They estimated that over half our carbon emissions come from buildings and energy, or like heat, using the energy to heat those buildings and homes. And these figures are about 6 to 7 years old. Unless massive changes have been made that we are unaware about, then these numbers must have skyrocketed. And these are numbers that could easily go down with the simple fixes with how we construct our buildings and homes. And finally, to conclude about the issue, Our community is growing at a very rapid rate, and we will eventually have to create more buildings. And by building more sustainable, we will be able to benefit as a society, and it will allow us to have a cleaner tomorrow and future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lana Joyce. I'm a sophomore at Carey Academy. And so through my research and interviewing within this course, I learned about a variety of energy efficiency elements, most importantly being insulation, which through talking with professionals, I have learned that insulation is the most important element in creating an energy efficient home. When a building has poor insulation, other elements such as heating systems have to work harder in order to make up for the faulty insulation, therefore resulting in an unnecessarily excess use of energy. Various installation methods can be used in order to end up with tightly sealed insulation. For example, building thicker exterior walls is one easy way to ensure that your home has extra strong insulation. Another example is using spray foam insulation, which ensures that no insulation gaps can be found within your home. Energy efficient appliances are another energy efficiency element that have a variety of benefits. The most important benefit being that energy efficient appliances consume less energy. This reduced consumption of energy leaves a smaller environment, not only leaves a smaller environmental footprint, but also results in reduced electricity bills comparatively to regular appliances. Water conservation is an essential element when building a structure because this element reduces the strain and usage of local water resources. And similarly to other energy efficiency elements, water conservational elements within a home lead to reduced energy and utility bills. Healthy indoor air quality is crucial for both the residents and the environment within a home, and the air quality inside a house is often poorer than the air quality outside a house, meaning that fresh air ventilation is crucial. Fresh air ventilation reduces the release of indoor air pollutants, which leads to less strain on local air quality and overall improved construction waste, and reducing the amount of construction runoff can have a large positive effect on the environment. 25% to 40% of the world's carbon emissions are caused by the construction-related activities, and finding a more sustainable approach to one of the world's biggest pollution contributors would have a plethora of benefits. A strong green heating and cooling system can also be important when trying to reduce energy waste. Comparatively to a weak heating system, uses overall less energy, which creates a smaller energy waste footprint and reduced energy bills. Thoughtful house framing is a crucial element because thoughtful house framing leaves no voids in insulation, meaning that thoughtful house framing is another large contributor to creating a well-insulated home. Overall, energy efficiency elements can have a variety of benefits that lead to a smaller carbon footprint and lower energy bills. And although it may seem impossible to find out where to start, the truth is that seemingly small steps like these can make a huge difference.
Hello again, I'm Caroline and I'm also a sophomore at Carey Academy. So I'm here to talk about why we should switch and some of the benefits. Firstly, I believe that the most important idea that we've learned from these experts is that sustainable homes and communities are long-term investments. While a home built according to EcoSelect or Energy Star standards or with solar panels may be more expensive upfront, building according to these standards will solve thousands of dollars of future energy bills. Although it takes a little while to see the return, they will prove to be considerable money savers and are certainly worth the upfront added cost. Another thing that's also very important to consider is that most people do not pay for their entire home at one time. While a potential buyer may see a higher price and freak out, in many cases the energy bill savings will be substantial enough to actually make the monthly mortgage payments cheaper than if they'd built a home with none of these sustainability standards. We recently met with the head of the Duke Energy Program incentives, and if a home meets a certain HERS specification, it could get up to $9,000. A HERS rating means a home energy rating system, which rates the sustainability and qualifications the home has to be energy efficient. A higher HERS rating could lead to better financial and environmental incentives. Currently, MLS or energy rating standards aren't being shared by realtors about what a home buyers want. We are arguing for more transparency for energy-related standards, which could add up to being a selling point for homeowners and home buyers. Having a sealed house is another great incentive for switching to eco-living, as it impacts general quality of living as well as a decrease in energy costs. A sealed house, or with certain insulation techniques, such as used by a company called Redesign, would decrease the need for more heating or cooling. Developers getting certified with Green Living or EcoSelect will also increase desirability, as homeowners find a decrease in energy bill and cost enticing. Finally, these green sustainable houses are what's called future-proof. This means that a well-built sustainable home will last for generations without having to update and replace tech. These are just a few reasons why all of us must switch to eco-friendly houses, and it benefits all of us financially as well as in other ways. We hope you join us in this massive push to save the environment we live in every day. We know that this can sound more oriented to individuals, but you as council members have the authority to help us impact Raleigh for the better. Thank you.
So these wonderful students are my students in the class that we do each semester. They get to choose the topic. They chose sustainable housing because it's important to them. And it's important to them because they will be dealing with the rest of their lives problems that we adults have created. And so I think we should take responsibility for that. And I think we should act sooner rather than later, like yesterday, in order to acknowledge the fact that we've made some mistakes and we'd like to fix them. So we adults should respond when our young people come to us. These students probably know more about this issue than 90% of the adults in Wake County. And at this point, what they are begging us to do is to act. One of the things that's sort of striking me about a lot of the comments that you've heard tonight, not only from us, but from others, is that many of these issues, they seem intractable. They seem way too big to fix. They will be unless we start. So let's start now. The last thing I'll share with you is a favorite quote of mine. The past leads to us if we force it to. The full quote is, the past leads to us if we force it to, otherwise it contains us in its asylum with no gates. We make history, or it makes us. Let's make some history in Raleigh. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being here, and just want to say good job. Let's see, Leslie, the next few people, Leslie Waring, Tim Niles, Omar Nebulisi, Frank Hilova. I got it. Jeremy Gilchrist and Marina Essa. Leslie?
Hi. Yes, I'm Leslie Worling.
Thank you.
And I'm here on behalf of the Jeffreys Grove Elementary families, neighbors, and staff who are concerned with safety in the area surrounding our school. The issues have been voiced by Grove families before me, in addition to citizens from neighboring schools such as Apex, Leadmine, and York Elementary, who have been experiencing similar hazards for a prolonged period of time. Of the Grove families who walk to school each day, many of us are met with unsafe conditions, which are exacerbated south of the school, where the sidewalk ends down to Creedmoor Road. This is within and outside of the currently designated school zone. The environment includes narrow pathways that are frequently inhibited by the sloping storm drainage zone, obstacles such as waste cans, and exposed utility lines. The southmost point is completely blocked by overgrown shrubs along vacated lots, which force walkers and strollers directly onto the road with vehicles through a low visibility area. Routine violations include speeding in and around the school zone, vehicles moving quickly in dangerously close proximity to pedestrians, and drivers crossing double yellow lines into oncoming traffic. All in addition to the other careless acts that cars are experiencing entering and exiting the school parking lot. Although our walking community is the most at risk, our drivers often feel unsafe and frustrated too. As Wake County continues to experience a bus driver shortage and the student population continues to grow, approximately 70% of our students now get to school through carpool, causing congestion that backs up to the blind turn previously mentioned that you can see here with overgrowth issues at the southmost point of JGS Road. Frequently, that traffic backs up onto fast-paced Creedmoor Road. The blockage is an issue daily during pickup when parents arrive at one set time along with school transportation vehicles. School transport then gets slowed down due to being routed directly into the carpool traffic from the south point of JGS Road, which you can see here on the map. But as you'll see here also, JGS is a C-shaped road with 2 access points from Creedmoor, and the route could easily be amended for school transportation vehicles. Other solutions exist here too. Yet, as the situation currently stands, motorists are stressed in this environment, which results in careless and reckless driving. And so this evening I stand before you to voice our concerns and request your aid in creating positive change quickly. We are doing our part to create awareness as citizens, to ask for help and to offer solutions, but we need you to ensure the follow through.
Staff will be following up.
Thank you.
Tim Niles.
Good evening, I'm Tim Niles. As of tonight, the downsized annual Christmas parade is only 4 days away. Last week, the city manager delivered a statement described as taking accountability for the turmoil that started with the abrupt cancellation of the parade. What was not provided was an explanation that contained any actual details. First and foremost, there was no explanation for why the city hid behind the grief of the Brooks family as their excuse for the cancellation when no one ever spoke to the family. Next, the city manager described what action will be coming without any description of what action, if any, has already taken place. She said, "This work will involve a thorough evaluation of all our processes from point of application to day of the event. We will also seek out best practices from organizers of some of the largest, most complex parades across the country. We will engage with event organizers to get on the same page moving forward. Our goal is to have the guidelines in place early next year to resume parade season with St. Patrick's Day. This is a good plan. It could have been a great plan if it had started last December, but everything is presented in the future tense. If this work can start now and be completed before March, why wasn't it started last December and completed in time for this year's parade season? There's been no answer. If you're going to include event organizers, why have you denied every request they have made to meet with you this year to review their updated safety protocols? There's been no answer. None of this work had to wait until now to begin, but no reason has been given for the delay. Raleigh deserves better. Raleigh deserves answers. Thank you.
Omar Nabulsi.
It's Nabulsi. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. Good evening. Salams to my fellow Muslims in the room. My name is Omar Nabulsi. I'm a Muslim Palestinian American and I'm a veteran of the U.S. Army. I'm here in support of a motion to call for a ceasefire. I, along with many other Palestinian and Muslim Americans, have lived here peacefully for decades. North Carolina has always had this diverse community, and that's one of the many things I loved about living here. We're your friends, neighbors, doctors, engineers, and even your service members. On August 5th, 2019, I enlisted in the U.S. Army, embarking on what I thought would be a fulfilling journey with hopes of making a positive impact in battling against Islamophobia and negative stereotypes. While serving this country, I was still facing Islamophobia and hate speech. On August 6, 2023, I completed my time in service, and instead of a feeling of fulfillment, I was left disappointed and frustrated. The Islamophobia and misinformation of the Middle East ran deeper than I thought. I came back home to North Carolina in hopes that I could start making that change within my community. As Mother Teresa said, if you want to change the world, go home and love your family. And so I came home with love for my family, and I stand before this council in hopes that you may delve deeper into yourselves as we can do a little self-reflection. I commend Mary Black for standing in solidarity with the Palestinian people. The silence from political figures across the nation in regards to the genocide and ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian people has been deafening. I ask that this council not be silent and to please be the change that this community wants to see. I ask that you be in support of a ceasefire, and together we can collaborate in order to make a genuine difference in battling Islamophobia and racism in all its forms. Thank you.
Once again, please follow the rules of decorum. No applauding between, it's going to be a very long night. Some of you might not get to speak until after midnight. So please, let's be respectful of everybody's time. Frank, if you could come up, please.
Oh, she's not even going to say your last name?
I already
She
did.
did earlier, correctly. Yes. And thank you. Frank Helema. I will address 5 topics on which council action would improve the quality of life in Raleigh. First, parades. I am encouraged to see movement toward restoration of floats and motorized vehicles in Raleigh's parades. I had the privilege of seeing leadership in action on November 4 at the Veterans Ceremony. Councilor Patton, who had no part in the unpopular decision not to allow motorized vehicles, sought out Richard Spirason, apologized to him for the city's handling of the event, and committed to have this fixed before next year's parade. I also commend Councilors Jones and Harrison for their public acknowledgement of the city's poor handling of parades. Second, missing middle. The most straightforward option to fix this policy, which becomes increasingly unpopular as more neighborhoods are affected, is to repeal it. If the boldness to repeal missing middle is lacking, significantly modify it, adopting the proposed changes offered by the ad hoc task force. Density changes which are greater than the city's zoning for both the frequent transit areas and the bus rapid transit routes should be allowed only on the immediate streets served by the bus route. Care has to be given to limit gentrification of neighborhoods and displacement of Raleigh's most economically vulnerable citizens. Third, affordable housing. This is directly related to missing middle policy. Embrace that the most affordable housing is what currently exists. Once NOAA is torn down, you cannot build anything back that will be more affordable. Policies must protect existing housing and not incentivize its destruction and replacement with larger luxury apartments, duplexes, or condos. Missing middle policy has only resulted in the destruction of NOAA without any contribution to affordable housing. Fourth, CACs. Reinvigorating CACs throughout all of Raleigh's neighborhoods should be a priority. CACs should be the forum for community engagement regarding proposed zoning changes. Discussion of zoning changes is a draw to meetings where citizens can then be engaged on many other topics related to city government. Fifth, public safety and following the rules. Mercenary security forces in public spaces present a risk, whether they are unarmed or armed. There can be incidents in which unarmed forces are shot or stabbed, or when armed forces take action that is inconsistent with policing policy, which results in injury or death of a citizen. Our city and our country have declined in civility in recent years. Promote a public campaign encouraging citizens to follow noise ordinances related to mufflers and music, to obey steep speed limits, to avoid road rage, and not to litter. Ask Chief Patterson what she needs to bring our police force up to full staffing, and commit to doing everything possible to give her the tools she needs to equitably serve all our neighbors. Until there is a free Palestine, there is no hope for peace in the Middle East.
Is Jeremy here? Thank you.
All right. I originally came here this evening to discuss displacement and the issues of gentrification in this city, but tonight I'm going to refer to the displacement of the Palestinian people in Gaza. They are now being forced out of their homes if they are lucky enough to survive the ongoing genocide at the hands of the Israeli government and the United States, who feeds them money and weapons. It should be noted, by the way, that Israel has elected the furthest right government in their history and has effectively become fascist. They are becoming what they once hated. Never again was supposed to mean for anyone, anywhere on this earth. Please don't mistake my words for anti-Semitism, as this is not a matter of blaming any religion or resorting to that attack only cheapens the definition of that word. You may want to check with Jewish Voices for Peace, who are actively standing with the Palestinians across this country and the world. I also don't appreciate being called someone who has being someone who's actively resisted fascism on the streets of this city wherever it's reared its ugly head, including picking up flyers in North Raleigh when I heard that they were being left by some neo-Nazis. But I'm here to call for a resolution on behalf of the city of Raleigh for an immediate ceasefire and the stop the genocide. I think you should all follow the lead of Councilor Black on this, and she's shown the courage to stand up on the right side of history. I don't know how anyone could ignore the madness of this apartheid and the brutal occupation's consequences. Civilian deaths are always abhorrent, and I want to pay that mind. But remember, this violence does not come out of a vacuum. It comes out of decades of oppression. People eventually reach a breaking point. Everyone has one. As a cis white man with every privilege there is except financial, I could choose to ignore this and go sip and stroll instead. However, I'm not built that way, never have been. I can't ignore my Palestinian friends who I stand with in solidarity. From Raleigh to Palestine, resistance is justified.
Is Marina here?
I'm a Christian Palestinian American woman, and my name is Marina Issa. I'm speaking today to call for a ceasefire, also the $3.8 billion of annual foreign assistance, 99.7 of that going to the Israeli military, who use it to commit genocide against Palestinians. Instead, we need to invest it in life-affirming social programs like robust public education and quality, affordable housing here. We have to stop funding the genocide with our tax dollars now. Genocide is the deliberate killing of a large number of people from a particular nation or ethnic group with the aim of destroying that nation or group. Israeli officials have openly stated their intent to commit genocide. Under international law, the United States has a duty to take all measures available to it to prevent a genocide. We need a ceasefire now. 5,200 Palestinians are being held in Israeli jails as hostages. Hundreds of children are included in this number. We have seen the dehumanizing way that Israel tortures their Palestinian hostages and have seen Hamas give their hostages pita bread and medical aid. This isn't about Hamas, it's about the principle of armed resistance fighting against the occupation. We need to oppose apartheid and colonization more than anything. We call on Raleigh City Council to both publicly commit to no future collaboration with the Israeli occupation forces and in any capacity immediately divest municipal funding from police and militarization here in our very own city. The majority of Americans want a ceasefire, 66% to be exact, and that number continues to rise. Approximately 5,000 Raleigh residents have protested in Moore Square the past several weeks and called for a ceasefire, and not one rally turned violent. I want to commend Councilwoman Mary Black for speaking in solidarity with the Palestinians and urge all council members to follow her example. North Carolina is part of the Bible Belt, and Palestine is the birthplace of Christianity. Christians make up around 20% of the global Palestinian population. Israel has pretty much wiped out the remaining Palestinian Christians in Gaza down to the hundreds. I'm a Christian Palestinian American, and I don't even have the right to return to my own motherland, the Holy Land, where there is an ongoing genocide. We need your help to call for a ceasefire. Inshallah, my family and I will be able to return to Palestine. We need you to use your platforms as our city council members to act against Israel's apartheid regime and brutal occupation of Palestine. I would like to point out that the mass genocide and 75-year ethnic cleansing of Palestinians has been going on long before the resistance group Hamas. The overall power asymmetry isn't being addressed, and it should be. More Palestinian children have been killed by Israel since October 7th in Gaza than all children killed in the conflict zones combined since 2019. You're responsible, do your part. You will not get my vote if you do not take action in supporting Palestine. Hopefully, you've heard me today.
Fatima. Okay, here's the next group: Fatima Sheet, Jessica Navarro, Rania Masri, Key Zamastil, Nadim Gabriel, and Jeremiah Sloop.
Hello, I'm Fatima, and I'm standing here today because I was lucky enough not to be murdered in the 3 Israeli attacks on Gaza that the US funded, that you here supported, that you used your tax dollar instead of using it to improve Raleigh, used it to kill me. I've lost cousins, classmates, and neighbors. And right now, every single second, you are not calling for a ceasefire and an immediate end to funding Israel is every second that I might lose my mother, my father, my siblings, and my house. I only moved to Raleigh last September. I finished high school in Gaza. My mom was just here this summer in Raleigh. She loved Raleigh. I love the community. I'm trying to make a home to myself here in Raleigh because Palestine has become a hell because of the US and Israel to me, because my school was partially bombed as well. I came to the US to finish my education because I was deprived of it back in Palestine. I decided to major in biomedical engineering because every after aggression on Gaza, supported by the US, I went to school and I saw classmates without legs and without arms. And right now, again, the US support to Gaza is the US supporting genocide on Gaza is just killing people like me. I'm standing here also to show you that we're just people. Here, I was there. My family is there. How can you go to bed tonight knowing you're killing people like me? I don't understand. Like, do you not see faces, humans? And secondly, I would like to say, I am half Ukrainian. I was born in Ukraine. Last year, when the Ukraine war started, I saw how Raleigh was supporting Ukraine until now. When I was protesting with a sign to Ukraine, everyone is sympathizing with me, supporting me. But now for Palestine, people are calling me a terrorist in the street. I'm still the same person. I'm half Ukrainian, half Palestinian. But you here are supporting, you here are signing on funds to support and save me in Ukraine, but signing on funds to kill me in Palestine? Thank you.
Jessica Navarro. Is Jessica here? Jessica Navarro? Okay, okay. Next is Rania Masri and then Key Zamastal. If you could come up, please, I would appreciate it.
I'm standing here to say, if you support Israel, you are evil. There's no other way to put it. There's no other word to describe your actions or lack thereof in helping the Palestinian people. And before I do go further, I recognize and appreciate Mary Black's support for Palestine. But for the rest of you, this is a willful ignorance and complicity of Israel's crimes does make you evil. We are witnessing a genocide on our phone, and there is nothing that we can do to stop it. At least that's what it feels like for me. So here we are, we're looking to our representatives. Us, the masses, are asking you to represent us in what we speak for. And what we want is respect and dignity of the people of Palestine by recognizing the actions taken by the terror state of Israel are not self-defense. Israel is not the victim here. In what world does bombing a densely populated, closed area for 37 days straight constitute justice? This should not be allowed, and we should all be furious. Could it be racism of this country that is so deeply rooted even now, where we see the clear land theft, murder, heavy border control outsourced isn't registered as wrong? As a Mexican American, I understand the border control of Gaza and the West Banks and the evil acts taken under the guise of national security. So I see the crimes of the oppressor and the crimes that have been happening for 75 years and 37 days, not just this month. How can you not? Israel tells us what is happening in Palestine, but Palestine shows us what is happening. How can evil in this world and its people still deny? How can we deny their truth when they themselves are experiencing this? Israel is a colonial project built by the U.S. for foreign relations, and under Zionist principles, they have been martyring Palestinians in order to steal their land. This is not a religious issue. Zionist ideals are as evil as Nazi ideals, because think about it. What does it take for Zionist principles to uphold? It's for the death and the destruction of Palestine. That's it. So it leads to the death of Palestinians. So your complacency, and lack of action is the evil of this world. I'm here demanding a ceasefire and for you guys to all stand with Palestine. Thank you.
Rania? Thank you.
Many people in this room and in the overflow room and in the hallway and outside have our hands painted red to represent the indiscriminate murder of the Palestinian people. Israel has killed more than 11,000 Palestinians in Gaza, including more than 4,500 children. More than 3,250 people are still missing under the rubble, including 1,700 children. Approximately 27,490 are wounded amidst a destroyed healthcare infrastructure, since 60% of the hospitals are now out of service, due to being bombed out of existence, by the way, as we've all seen. Almost half of the Palestinians killed were in the southern part of Gaza, the area to where the Israeli authorities have illegally demanded that Palestinians in northern Gaza move. However, clearly, there is no safe place in Gaza. Let me run a few numbers for you. Israel is the largest recipient of U.S. aid, more than $3.8 billion in annual foreign assistance, 99.7% going to the Israeli military. In North Carolina, the number is 91.7, that's a large number, 91.7 million to Israel's weapons, which could instead fund 10,910 households with public housing, 31,932 children with free or low-cost health care, more than 1,000 elementary school teachers. Do we want to fund killing, or do we want to fund life? In Raleigh, just in this city, there is $6.8 million that goes to Israel's weapons, which could instead fund 814 households with public housing for 1 year. 2,383 children with free or low-cost health care. 74 elementary school teachers. Again, what are our priorities? Our tax dollars should be used to fund real programs of community safety, like affordable housing, public transportation, healthcare, and as you know, Refund Raleigh has been fighting for this for the last 3 years, an independent mental health crisis response unit that is independent from the police. Now, we understand and we know that City Council may not have control of our federal dollars, but you do have the power to divest from police, which is a colonial system, just like the colonial system in Israel. You do have the power to divest from police and invest in real programs of community safety. As our elected representatives, it is your responsibility and obligation to manage taxpayer dollars for our benefit. Our tax dollars should be used to fund
Thank you.
community safety. Thank you.
Next is Key Zamastel. Then Natum Gabriel and Jeremiah Sloop, if you could please come up. Is Key here? Okay, Natum Gabriel.
Good evening, esteemed members of the City Council. My name is Nadim Jabril, and I come before you not just as a concerned member of our community, but as a human being first and foremost. I am a father, a husband, a son, a brother, a friend, an American, a North Carolinian, a downtown Raleigh enthusiast, and at the core of my being, Lebanese. Today, I draw your attention to a matter transcending borders, the ongoing genocide and displacement of the Palestinian people at the hands of the Israeli government. The situation is critical as outlined in my submission dated October 15, 2023. I had a speech written, and I thought about it, and I thought about it, but my message here is a very simple one. I'm a human being that believes that we are here to love each other. I am not a human being that believes that we are here to murder each other, and I don't care for justification on this matter. It is simple. Every day, for the last month, since my family came home from Lebanon, I get to hug my son and kiss him. And I get to be with him, and I get to be with my wife. And there is no reason other people should not be able to enjoy such a simple joy. There is no reason our tax dollars in this country should go to fund anything when we have wonderful programs like the one our wonderful mayor mentioned at the ULI conference last week about the BRT and the S-Rail. Things that we need this funding for to connect us to the rest of the country and to boom our economy. Things to help this Raleigh population that has taken me home. Again, I grew up here in this city and then I left for 18 years to live at home. And I found that it was an inhospitable place, and I came back home to Raleigh. And I'm happy to be here. And I'm happy to be here talking for people, because when I was in Lebanon protesting, I prayed that there was somebody somewhere else in the world listening so they could amplify my voice. I didn't want to get emotional, but this isn't a bad emotion. I didn't want to get angry, but I am angry, and I'm upset, and I'm hurt because I didn't realize that humans could be so dark still in this day and age, but maybe I'm just a child living in an adult world. But I enjoy my time with my son. I enjoy my time with my fellow Raleighans. I enjoy my time with my fellow humans. I've met wonderful people in the 29 years that I've been alive. I look forward to meeting many more. Thank you and have a good night.
Jeremiah Sloop.
I'm here today out of grave concern, both for the Palestinian people and for this city's financial support of the ongoing genocide being perpetrated against them. Many times in recent weeks, we have heard from local organizers and residents that have lost beloved family members, friends, and countrymen to Israel's naked aggression. We have yet to hear this council, nor our city's leaders, save for Councilperson Black, voice support for these victims, nor their families. Worse yet, is our ongoing own complicity in the decades-long occupation of Palestine that has culminated in the hellish onslaught we witness today. The marriage between RPD and the Israeli occupation force is an unholy union, and it can only rightly be characterized as one of shared brutality. Millions of Raleigh taxpayer dollars have been sent to Israel to fund their ongoing occupation efforts, and in turn, Israeli commandos share with RPD their brutal tactics for urban assault, skills they have honed over decades of inflicting terror on an entire population of people. What justification does this city do these council members offer for this alliance? What parallels can possibly be drawn between our small city and a warring colonial state some 6,600 miles away? Israel is a nuclear power with the fourth most powerful military establishment in the world and has been in a state of near constant war for decades. The residents of Raleigh are private citizens, not a paramilitary nor enemies of the state. To train our police force in this manner is to commit to an asymmetrical power imbalance that will only escalate the growing divide between law enforcement and the community. To respond to civil unrest in this manner is not only foolish, it is historically another step on the road to overt fascism, Madam Mayor. Every dollar this city sends to the Israeli occupation force is another acknowledgement that this city is fighting a war against itself. No longer will we tolerate supporting a genocidal regime halfway around the world. No longer will we tolerate our own police and leadership training as if to go to war with us. Counselors, history will look back to this moment with the same gravitas and terrific awe ascribed to similar genocides of the recent past, those in the Belgian Congo, the antebellum South, and Nazi Germany. I implore you to look past your own political ambition and party line rhetoric and instead to follow your conscience. I demand that City Manager Adams David, Mayor Baldwin, Chief Patterson, and this council pledge to end all partnership with the Israeli occupation force, including any monetary transfers from city coffers. I leave you with two aspirational calls for justice. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, and arrest the cops that murdered Dora Williams. Thank you.
Going to call up the next people, and if you could come up, I would appreciate it. Danya Dubor, Josh Bradley, Donna Bailey, Diane Enright, Kimberly Mukhtarian, and Jennifer Martin.
My name is Danya. I'm a Palestinian American born and raised in Raleigh, North Carolina. I stand before you today expelled from stolen land on stolen land. Gaza is a strip of land smaller than Raleigh. It is densely populated by 2.1 million native Palestinians, 50% children, living under years of oppression, occupation, and siege. This land in the last 37 days has been turned into a demolition site by USA-backed Israel. It's become an assortment of body parts of the dead, innocent Palestinian men, women, and children, a 99.5% civilian death toll. Dead doctors, dead journalists, dead UN staff members, dead NICU infants, remnants of native people's homes, hospitals, churches, schools, any and everything turned into ruins. A melting pot, the American dream. We have stood idly by as Israel publishes lies, blindly endorsed by the President of the United States. The same United States that was built on the backs of indigenous people, nurtured by the Africans that were forced here in slavery. The same president who is sending $14.3 billion of my Palestinian American tax dollars to fund the extermination of my lineage in Palestine. Is your pedestal obstructing your view of these atrocities because your children don't look like these children? Are you just pretending that you're not watching a genocide happen on your phone? I see myself in these children. I see my parents, my siblings, my nephews, my cousins. I see my family. I don't have the privilege of disassociating from the Palestinians who are being wiped off the earth. We could have spared the lives of more than 5,000 children if our leaders listened to the millions of people across the globe urging for a ceasefire. They not only occupy our land, they also possess our thoughts and rob our hearts of peace. We are funding an unforgivable act to shred my roots as if they're worthless and deny me the right to return. So as an American, I strongly urge you and beg you even to call for an immediate ceasefire because my blood and their blood is not worthless. The people of Palestine are depending on us. Save the children, save the mothers, save the innocent men, and please spare me my Palestine.
Josh Bradley.
Mayor and councilors, I don't want to distract you too much from your phone, Madam Mayor. Keep it quick. It's ironic that we're here on stolen land having to discuss this, but Mayor and councilors, I'm here tonight to request two things. First, I hope that the City Council will pass a resolution to support calls for a ceasefire in Gaza. Second, I think it is important to follow Durham's lead and ban the training of Raleigh police in Israel. Why do I support these things? It's because I lose sleep thinking about the well over 4,000 children that have been killed using bombs that I and everyone in this room is paying for. Over 11,000 killed, and these are gross undercounts. I'm just going to put that out there. Paid for by you and I and everyone in this room using our tax money to do it. Every civilian death leaves a trail of money that leads to all of us, regardless of our religion, ethnicity, income, gender identity, or political alignment. Every U.S. dollar that is sent to aid the siege of Gaza comes from the taxes that we pay. We are given no choice. We must stand up in every way we can to prevent civilian deaths. Collective punishment is against international law along with occupation. Apartheid is never good, and oppression does not make peace easier. As a socialist, I always stand on the side of the oppressed, and in a situation where one of the region's strongest militaries is fighting a comparatively light-armed militia, I don't understand why 2.25 million people are cut off from water, food, and fuel. I don't understand why another generation of kids have to be traumatized, the ones that make it, to make the occupiers feel safer, and I don't understand why hospitals are ever bombed. I don't understand why people think that increasing oppression will make anybody safer. Peace and freedom are the only way that we'll be able to maintain civilization. All of our efforts should be focused on that. And while the Democrats are destroying themselves internally in this difficult time, and the Republicans are generally okay with oppression at home and abroad, please consider looking at options outside the capitalist duopoly next time you vote. So I ask you to follow other cities and call the U.S. government to do a ceasefire. As for letting police and train in Israel, it's counterproductive. We don't need to train cops in how to hold people down and oppress people. We need to train them to protect life and serve everyone. And since I've got another couple of seconds before I stop, I'd like you to raise your hands if you've been out and seen any of the encampments of the people that are unhoused that are living in your city that are growing all the time. Anyone? Thanks.
Donna? I'm waiting for my visual. Okay. I would like to invite you and the public to attend a seminar about the proposed BRT and the promises that Raleigh made to the residents of Raleigh. The guest speaker is Talolape Omokaye. Okay, that was a good shot. Who's the chair of the Raleigh Transit Authority. This is being offered on Zoom, hosted by Livable Raleigh, this Thursday, November 16th. Counselor Harrison, if you rush home from your event, you can watch it. To learn the facts about how Marianne Baldwin and her cronies have turned Raleigh's equitable bus rapid transit BRT promises into just another Baldwin money grab, and to learn what you can do to fix it. I'm talking to the 7 of you. Before Baldwin Council came into power, the city had made 3 promises. In 2016, Raleigh's planning director promised Raleigh's BRT would serve some of Raleigh's lowest wealth communities and ensure that these investments would benefit rather than displace households and families. At the New Bern BRT kickoff meeting, a senior city planner pledged the city would make sure the BRT benefits are shared equitably so that existing residents of the New Bern corridor are going to be there to benefit. And Raleigh created the Equitable Development Around Transit EDAT guide that promised the city would guide future growth around transit to reverse displacement. I'm happy to send you this document if anyone wants to see it. Before the Baldwin Council came to power, the EDAC guidebook promised that 3-story zone buildings along New Bern Avenue could get a 50% height bonus for including affordable units. But when Baldwin and her cronies came to power, they decided instead to upzone all 744 parcels along New Bern Avenue to between 5 and 20 stories, eliminating any incentive to produce affordable units, while at the same time driving up rents and taxes and forcing low-wealth families out of the corridor. Congratulations to Baldwin and her cronies. If allowed to go through, her money-grabbing version of Smart Growth will blow up New Bern Avenue and go down in history as the biggest ever urban renewal displacement of low-wealth families in the state, surpassing that even of Durham's freeway's destruction of the Black Hayti neighborhood. Come to the Livable Raleigh event on Thursday and learn about it. Please do not allow Marianne to further destroy the Raleigh that we all know and love. The quality of life has greatly deteriorated under her leadership. We see successful businesses leaving downtown because of crime and other issues. Thank you.
Diane Enright. Next, Diane Enright, Kimberly Mukhtarian, Jennifer Martin.
Good evening. My name is Diane Enright, and I'm the chair of the Raleigh St. Patrick's Day Parade Committee. This coming year will be our 40th parade, I hope. During the planning period for the St. Patrick's Day Parade in this past year, my committee worked closely with the Raleigh Special Events Office on creating safety guidelines for vehicles that would be in the parade. We wanted to ensure the best that we could the safety of all of our participants, as well as the attendees. We had a good dialogue of what was needed and what would work. We checked each vehicle upon entry to the lineup area, along with review of inspection, insurance, and driver license documentation. In addition, we also requested that entries with children have at least 2 adult spotters with them. Now, there seems to be a question about having parades at all, or a question of having parades with vehicles. Motorized vehicles offer accessibility for participants and funding for us, the organizers. I have heard there will be a pause on submitting applications for parades, but that new rules will be in place in time for the St. Patrick's Day Parade. Well, my application for a permit is due tomorrow. The 120-day planning period has begun. I would like to ask council that they include parade organizers in any discussions regarding the rules and regulations for parades. As our planning period starts tomorrow, I also have to ask that this be done as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank Kimberly Mukhtarian. Is Kimberly here? Okay.
Good evening, council and members of the City of Raleigh's operations. My name is Dr. Kimberly Mukhtarian, and of course, I am here to stand in support of Palestinians across this nation, around this world, and specifically right home in my backyard. Why? Because as an African-American woman, I understand the plight of what it means to be dismantled right before your very eyes by a country that says it is Christian. I am going to remind you of what you have promised us after 250 years of existence, you decided to apologize to the African American community. And you said, we apologize to the African American persons for targeting you for criminal justice through racial profiling, police brutality, and inadequate legal representation. And I will say to you that we have had taxation with no representation. What I will also say is that on Rock Quarry Road in 1833, the quarry was built for black people to build this city. But what we have found is that 5 black men have died on Rock Quarry Road by police brutality. And I know that you are resolving Darrell Williams, but it's much bigger than Darrell Williams. And the reason why I say Darrell Williams is because he is post George Floyd, when you decided to have a heart and get the heart program and get a heart transplant and all of the wonderful things that you have said you would do from this civil rights movement all the way back from emancipation. I am pre-George Floyd, and I ask you to go back and not give us another wear of your ass. But whereas we need you to go back and fix the brokenness that you've done to the black community, because we ask for a ceasefire in our communities as well. Gang violence, the mental health that has come over time. Our black mothers are dying because our children are losing hope. And I will ask you to go back and revisit the Maurice Harton case where your officers killed and knocked 2 black men off of a scooter and said they were speeding. And then 3 years later, you killed the son. So I have a mother that's grieving 2 sons in the city of Raleigh within a 3-year period. And no one has apologized. We don't need 1.2 million. We just need you to at least acknowledge that you are wrong. And we look forward to that apology with payment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, I'd just like to ask, since I was not, 4 of us were not on council and didn't know, I would like to learn some more about what has been done since those incidents in Raleigh, this incident we're talking about in 2013. I'd like to uplift that and spend some time really learning what policies have changed and how we can make, and how I can learn some more
City
about that.
manager can follow up.
Thank you for your humanity, Councilwoman Christina Jones and Mrs. Black.
Jennifer?
Mayor and councilors, once again, thank you for taking the time to allow all of us to speak tonight. We know that your time is very valuable and it does matter, and appreciate from all of us that we can do this. City Manager Adams, thank you for taking up the matter of discussion of parades last week. It is very encouraging to hear that we are going to be inviting all parade organizers at a city level to come together and talk about how parades might look in the future and experiences and lessons learned. Well, we're only on our 79th parade here in Raleigh this coming weekend. Christmas parades have existed for 139 years, and it is a proud, honored, time-honored tradition, and it's something that communities come together, have community pride, community talent has its place to showcase, and it's much more as the kickoff of the holiday season, the season of the spirit of giving, the season of love, the season of coming together, and the season of celebrating each other and the selfless gifts that we've been given. We very much look forward to helping support all of our other parade organizers in this community. Councilor Jones, thank you for giving us all a chance to speak last week, to come together to talk about different parades that we've done, lessons learned, things that we've learned from a safety perspective, and how we might come together to also help serve the city and coming forward and coming together to provide safety clarifications and ways forward together. Our organization, I know that we have changed or started a lot of this discussion about parades. We've also put in a lot of time to help improve them and going forward of how we can help make all events better in this city. As the St. Patrick's Day parade organizers mentioned, their 120-day limit does start tomorrow, and we very much look forward to not only serving as far as how can we help the Raleigh Christmas Parade, but also how can we help other events in this community, how can we serve, and how can we volunteer on other parade organizations and bring forward the best that we can for all of our citizens here. We hope that all of you can come out and join us this weekend. It is Saturday, the 79th anniversary. It will look very different than parades past, but we are so excited to present to all of you the amazing, incredible talent we have in our community, the creativity that people have brought forward, and that how we can hopefully celebrate Christmas together in Raleigh. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Jalen Miller, Charlie Burnett, Lindsay Holmes, Annette Exum, Lydia Kerrigan, Arazan of Nof. If you could come up, please. Starting with Jalen Miller. Withdrew. Okay. Charlie Burnett.
All right. From the coal mines of West Virginia to the Jim Crow South, and especially during the Wilmington Massacre, whose 125th anniversary was just 4 days ago, wealthy white business owners have collaborated with their wealthy white political allies to hire private militias to police, harass, assault, and murder those in their communities who they deem the other. My, how history repeats itself. Let's be clear, the armed private security that you, Marianne Baldwin, are conspiring with the Raleigh Transit Authority and Go Raleigh to allow to patrol the Moore Square bus station and city buses, and the private security you are permitting the Downtown Raleigh Alliance to patrol public spaces downtown with the authority to detain and assault residents is not about public safety. It is about the racism and classism which you as a mayor have made the cornerstones of your policy setting and decision making since most unfortunately becoming mayor 4 years ago. Neither Bill King, David Meeker, or any of the other leadership of the DRA, obviously aside from yourself, are publicly accountable elected officials and have absolutely no right setting city policy behind the backs of the public and duly elected council members, as has been done so. Furthermore, I find it fascinating the private militia you are hiring and that you have permitted the DRA to hire will only be patrolling the central area of downtown, particularly areas where black residents tend to enjoy and where residents who do not have the luxury of owning a car must wait on a dysfunctional bus service, and not the Glenwood South District where many of the violent assaults are occurring, including by private security at certain clubs. With that said, I would like to provide some ways to actually improve public safety and that will not endanger the lives and safety of some of our most vulnerable residents. 1, immediately approve of and begin construction of sidewalks on roads such as New Bern Avenue and Gorman Street, as well as lowering speed limits and putting in effective crosswalks. A great example being the crosswalks where pedestrians can push a button to initiate flashing yellow lights, such as the one on Pullen Road at NC State. Build protected bike lanes throughout the city, a great example being those found in the Trailwood Springs area. Build covered, well-seated bus stops so that elderly residents and families with children aren't baking in the summer sun or being soaked in the freezing rains of winter. Abandon the so-called ACORN program and establish a HEART program such as the one in Durham, which has a 99% success rate in preventing the need to call police, who almost always escalate mental health crises in unnecessarily violent ways. Perhaps the best way to improve public safety would be for you, a mayor who oversaw an entire summer of violent and cowardly attacks by the RPD against peaceful Black Lives Matter demonstrators, and who hired outside attorneys with taxpayer money to attempt to pay 2 women and their children who suffered a violent and traumatizing attack by the RPD as liars to resign. We know this won't happen, but you can guarantee that we will organize over the coming year, vote you out of office, and elect a mayor who truly cares about all Raleigh citizens, not just her wealthy, white, bigoted friends.
Lindsay Holmes. Is Lindsay Holmes here? Okay. Annette Exum. Lydia Corrigan.
Good evening. I'm here today to speak about the conflict between Israel and Palestine as a concerned citizen and your constituent. Last year alone, the U.S. donated more than $3 billion to Israel, 99.7% of which was directed directly to the Israel Defense Fund. Since October 7th, Israeli airstrikes have killed more than 11,000 people. This death toll does not distinguish between civilians and military personnel, even though Palestine has no formal military. More than 4,000 of these people are children. I'll say that again. It is known that at least 4,000 children have been killed by Israeli airstrikes. This is the result of financial contributions from the United States. North Carolina provides millions of dollars a year to Israel, and this is the outcome. Families' entire bloodlines are being erased by this genocide. The Palestinian Ministry of Health reported on October 15th that 47 families have been wiped from the civil registry. Those remaining in Gaza have little to no access to electricity, clean water, or humanitarian aid. Moreover, according to the World Health Organization, Israeli airstrikes have damaged 36 health facilities, including 22 hospitals, one of which is Al-Shifa Hospital, the main in the region. The children's hospitals are also being decimated by these attacks. They are suffering from Israel's cruel act of cutting off electricity to the area, preventing these facilities from functioning to help the sick and wounded. This is a direct violation of Articles 12 and 15 of the Geneva Conventions, which state the sick and wounded shall be respected and protected without discrimination. The wounded and sick shall not be murdered, exterminated, or subjected to torture or biological experiments. The wounded and sick shall receive adequate care. The wounded and sick shall be protected against pillage and ill treatment. So I ask you, our representatives, to call for a ceasefire. I ask you to stand with Councilwoman Mary Black. I ask you to stand with your citizens to represent your constituents who also demand a ceasefire. I ask you, when will you demand an end to the genocide of Palestinians? Thank you.
Next is Razan Abnoff.
Thank you. My name is Razan Abnouf, and I come to you today as a resident of Raleigh, who was born and raised in Raleigh, and who works in Raleigh, and who wants to see the betterment of the Raleigh community. I come to you today to urge the city of Raleigh to ban the police department's ties with the Israeli military, to divest city funding from law enforcement, and to demand Mayor Baldwin to call for a ceasefire in Gaza. Since October 7th, more than 11,000 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza, women and children accounting for 67% of the casualties, according to the Gaza Health Ministry. This is a genocide, and I am disappointed in the city of Raleigh for not condemning it. At the same time, it would be wrong to suggest that this conflict began on October 7th. Since its creation, Israel has established an apartheid regime in occupied Palestine, whose oppressive militarization serves to dehumanize and oppress the Palestinian people. According to Amnesty International, the Israeli police have and continue to commit countless violations of international law, including unlawful use of force against peaceful protesters, torture of Palestinian detainees, and sweeping arrests targeting Palestinian activists, only to name a few. This militarization bears resemblance to that of law enforcement in Raleigh, particularly Southeast Raleigh, where Black, brown, and immigrant communities live and where I live. The heavy police presence in Southeast Raleigh is starkly different from that of predominantly white areas of the city. I see it every single day. And every single day, I worry that my community members may fall victim to the violence that the Raleigh police have historically inflicted on minority and disabled community members. Akil Denkins, Daniel Turcios, Sahil Muharad, say their names. I think of the Raleigh police's use of tear gas and rubber bullets on BLM protests in March of 2020. The parallels of violent and inhumane treatment of residents in Raleigh and Palestine are disgusting and disturbing, but what is truly disturbing is that this is not a coincidence, but the result of trainings and exchanges with the IDF and RPD. These exchanges reinforce policing practices that uphold white supremacy. In 2018, Durham became the first city in the United States to ban these ties with the Israeli military, and it is imperative that Raleigh follow in Durham's lead. With that being said, I urge the city of Raleigh to divest its police funding to better the community rather than continue funding the over-policing of our people. Today, you cannot deny that the people of Raleigh care. Many of the speakers today have expressed their concern for the people of Palestine and how their struggles go hand in hand with our own. If representing your constituents means anything to you, you will stand against police brutality in Raleigh and in Palestine and demand a ceasefire in Gaza now. From Raleigh to Palestine, occupation is a crime. Thank you.
All right, I'd like to ask the following people to next come up. Sophia Abdul-Wahab, Taranya Ranjan, Cole McMullen, Christine Ernst, John Ernst, and Waleed Jafari. Sophia? Is Sophia here? Taranya? Please come up.
I'm here as someone with basic empathy and understanding for the significance of human life. I am here as a North Carolinian resident, ashamed to see elected officials failing to do their jobs as people who were trusted by their voters to make decisions for the betterment of society. The City of Raleigh mission statement says, to build a stable platform of evolving services for our community through which we champion positive and sustainable growth and realize visionary ideas for all. How can we trust that you can do this when you can't even stand against Israel's bombardment and the genocide against the Palestinians? How can we trust that you can do this when you fail to use your voice and platform for people in need? Mayor Baldwin can take time out of her city council meeting and express her solidarity with the Israeli people. What about the Palestinian people? What will it take for you to care? Or at least acknowledge the murder of Palestinians? What is required for you to show a little bit of empathy towards the victims of genocide and ethnic cleansing? As of November 13th, since October 7th, the UN reported that over 11,000 people were killed, including more than 4,600 children. Over 27,000 were injured in Gaza, including more than 8,600 children, not to mention the people that were trapped under rubble. Over 40,000 housing units destroyed in Gaza, 135 healthcare facilities attacked, 1.51 million displaced individuals, premature babies at risk because electricity was shut off. How much more do you need to know and witness to take action? Israel has dropped the equivalent of 2 nuclear bombs on the Gaza Strip, which is smaller than the city of Raleigh. 2 of the largest hospitals shut down. All of these civilians brutally injured with nowhere to get treatment. Women having to undergo C-sections with no anesthetics, no food, no water. Is this enough for your solidarity? Is this enough for you to care? North Carolina and the rest of the United States are complicit in this genocide against the Palestinian people. North Carolina companies received more than $17 million in foreign military financing to provide military equipment to the IDF. The United States has allocated $14 billion of our taxpayer money to be sent to the war and genocide-crazed government of Israel. You all and the rest of the U.S. government have subjugated us in being complicit to the genocide of Palestinians against our will. I personally, along with many of the people here, do not condone or consent to this. I'm sure you know that as elected officials, you have the moral obligation to do what is right for the greater good of society. Your silence and ignorance is not right for the greater good of society. It would be a shame for you to have no desire to bring justice and freedom to the Palestinians. Free Palestine.
Cole? After Cole is Christine Ernst, John Ernst, and Waleed Jafari.
Cole McMullen. At the October 17th work session, Parks and Rec staff presented on preliminary plans to begin forming a municipal services district, or an MSD, to allocate money to Dix Park. This is on top of money the park will be receiving from the recent Parks Bond and money it will receive from the county. For those who may not be aware, MSDs are an extra property tax for a defined area within the city, meaning properties near Dix Park within the final boundaries of the potential MSD would pay additional property taxes to fund the park. MSDs are fundamentally inequitable in multiple ways. First, the additional property tax burden increases the cost of living within that district for the existing residents. Staff said they were looking at the possibility of leaving out single-family resident properties. That's good, but what about multifamily housing properties? If an apartment complex is within that MSD, that additional property tax is passed on to the tenants that live there. That increased cost of living is a gentrification pressure that will push out low-income residents, leading to the second way that MSDs are inequitable. The revenue generated by an MSD stays within that district. The push of low-income residents out of the district and the pull of additional property tax revenue to remain within the district will essentially facilitate the concentration of wealth within our city, creating pockets of wealthy areas that enjoy a premium level of service while neglecting the fair and equitable distribution of public dollars to all areas of the city. The primary function of MSDs is to intensify inequality within a city, and they are a scourge to an egalitarian society. The last thing we need in Raleigh are more MSDs. I just spoke a little bit about gentrification pressures within the city of Raleigh and displacement. I'd like to now talk a little bit about displacement pressures abroad, and that would be in Palestine. The government of Israel is doing a settler colonialist project to displace existing residents in Palestine, and that is essentially one of the root causes of the recent outbreak of violence in the region. And until that issue is addressed, there won't be any peace in that region. Calling for a ceasefire is easy. It may not change anything today, but what could it change, a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? It may mean nothing to President Joe Biden if Raleigh City Council calls for a ceasefire, but it means something to this community.
Christine Arts. Christine?
Thank you for taking the time to listen to us today. Thank you. Can folks hear me? I'd like to first acknowledge that we are all here on stolen land as the result of genocide, that we do not even know all of the tribes that originally lived in this space. As the descendant of Palestinian refugees, one of whom is buried here in Raleigh, my grandmother, I can't help but feel the weight of those lost souls who we don't even know. And I want to acknowledge the genocide that was perpetuated against them. I don't know if folks can understand how much this community is hurting. We are watching our bloodlines be wiped out every single day, while most folks who are not Muslim, who are not Palestinian, who are not Arab, don't seem to care at all. Thank you, Councilwoman Black, for your solidarity, for your basic humanity. I want to be very clear. This conflict, there is no excuse for letting children suffocate to death and say nothing. There's suffocating to death in incubators, little premature babies, and folks saying nothing. There's no excuse for, as someone said, amputations being done on children without anesthesia, cesarean C-sections being performed on women without anesthesia. It is basic humanity to condemn this and call for an end to the violence. I beg you to please do that. I want to be clear. The violence that we're seeing now did not start on October 7th. In 1948, my grandmother was a Palestinian woman in the town of Bisan, which no longer exists because it was wiped off the map. She was in college in Beirut. Her parents were driven from their homes. Their house was stolen, their land was stolen, their bank accounts frozen and stolen by the government of Israel. My great-grandfather, who was diabetic, died within weeks because he couldn't pay for his insulin. Our family has never been compensated, and our pain and loss has never been acknowledged by the government of Israel, and the United States continues to act as the only Israeli and Jewish lives matter. My great-grandfather who died, his business partner was Jewish. My grandmother told me stories about helping Jewish European refugees. We are tired of being the scapegoat, the whipping boy for European anti-Semitism. White Gentiles need to make their reparations, just like we need to make reparations to Black people in our own community.
Okay, thank you. Is John Ernst here? Okay. Waleed Jafari. Is Waleed here? Okay. We are going to take a 10-minute break before I think everybody kind of needs a break. Just to, yes. So, are you good? So, 10 minutes.
Thank you. We're on 53.
Where's Megan and where's Storm?
And I just want to say, hey, y'all, thank you for coming and talking with us. I know this is a little bit of a strange forum in that we don't do a lot of talking back and forth with one another. Typically, we listen up here, and then hopefully we do right by you. I hear the pain. I know what is going on. I have been calling our senators. I have asked Congresswoman Ross to sit down with us to talk about the immediate plan for peace. I don't know what's going to happen next, but I appreciate that you are here and you are putting your voices out. I want to see the end of this conflict, and I know it must happen as soon as possible to keep life.
Ask the mayor to stop sharing Israeli propaganda.
Okay. Calling the meeting.
Please, y'all, I can respect, believe me, I can respect the feeling of anger, of sadness, of everything that you're feeling. But if you want this meeting to finish tonight and to have the remainder of the list have their chance to speak at the podium to us, we're going to have to follow the rules of decorum and just be calm. So, are we?
If it continues, we're going to have to call the meeting. So, and now I'm asking for some decorum, and I'm going to call the next names, and I would ask that you please, let's let everybody have their say and show respect for everybody else who wants to speak. So next I have Sami Abdulkader, Mohammed Abdul Hamid, Adam Al Asma, Rosie Millen, Abdullah El Mansouri, and Deja Huggins. If you could come up and form a line, we could get started again. So Sami first. Sami here. Okay. Mohammed Abdul Hamid. Do we still have people in?
I think that's everybody in the overflow. I've been texting them.
Everybody's here? Okay. All right. Adam Al Asma. Is Adam here? Rosie Millen. Is Rosie here? Abdullah El Mansouri. Deja Huggins. Okay, we'll go on to the next group. Mahmoud Salih, Rashid Oumous, O-U-M-O-U-S, Haley Kinsler, Nada Mohammed, Zainab Baloch, and Hamdi Hashi. Is Mahmoud Salih here? Rashid, I'm not sure how to pronounce this name, O-U-M-O-U-S. Is Rashid here? Haley Kinsler. I thought I saw Haley here.
She just walked out.
Okay, are you? I'm
My name-
sorry. Can you say your name again, please?
Neda Mohammed.
Okay.
Every year, $3.8 billion from the U.S. government is sent to fund Israel's violent apartheid, not counting the additional $14 billion this year. $6.8 million of those dollars alone comes from Raleigh. This is our tax dollars going to fund the genocidal regime instead of being reinvested in our local, state, and federal communities. It is an absolute shame that funding ethnic cleansing by a colonial state that continues to break almost every international humanitarian law in place is more important to our representatives in North Carolina instead of the calls of action and needs by their constituents. It is a shame that Wiley Nickel, Kathy Manning, and Don Davis from the Democratic Party voted to censure their own member, the only Palestinian American representative in Congress, for calling an end to this genocide, while other members in Congress have used inflammatory language to describe Gaza being turned into a parking lot and inciting that it will be enough when all Gazans are dead, with no repercussions whatsoever. Yet we are villainized for saying the words "Free Palestine." I want to make it very clear that in here in Raleigh, every single pro-Palestine protest has been peaceful, avoidant of any hateful speech and behavior, and has only called for an immediate ceasefire and an end to the U.S.'s involvement in the massacre, to which the mayor has not yet acknowledged while she shows her support for Israel. We are all here today to solidify our presence in Raleigh and force our voices to be heard. Our representatives are supposed to be heeding the needs and work for their constituents, working for us, the people who voted for them. On a recent poll by Data for Progress, 66% of all voters call for a ceasefire, 80% of Democratic voters, 56% of Republican voters. Yet hardly anyone from Congress is heeding that call. Starting from this city council upwards, we have the ability to prove that we are on the right side of history, to prove that we will not stand complicit in the funding and support of a genocide and a slaughter of already 11,000 innocent civilians. We demand that the representatives support the House Resolution 786 to instill a full and immediate ceasefire and allow full humanitarian aid into Gaza. We urge that our representatives listen to the demands of their constituents and for this city council to pass a resolution for a ceasefire, because we will not showing up until they do, or we will vote them all out. Thank you.
I'm here to join the call for the City Council to pass a resolution calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. For years, we've been calling for the City of Raleigh to stand in solidarity with those who experience oppression and marginalization, whether that be in our city, in this state, or anywhere from here to Palestine. Currently, the Palestinian people are experiencing the horrifying and ongoing destruction that comes with collective punishment, including the indiscriminate cutting off of access to electricity, a lack of access to water, medical equipment, food, and every day there are less and less places to take shelter as people's homes, places of worship, hospitals, stores, schools, and universities are bombed. The loss of life in Palestine is staggering, and it has gone on for far too long. International law recognizes collective punishment as a war crime, and the city holds a serious and immediate responsibility in condemning these acts and taking immediate steps toward de-escalation. It's hard to see the policing of our communities that takes place even in these chambers. Mayor Baldwin, you tell people they can't clap during or between comments for fear that we'll all be here late into the evening and that we'll lose sleep. But what about the sleep being lost by those who are experiencing constant bombing in Palestine now? How are they meant to sleep as they hear their land destroyed? What if the sleep lost by those in Raleigh who are waiting to hear from their family, friends, neighbors, and loved ones in Palestine? How can they sleep? Know that they might not hear from their loved ones again. How do those who have lost loved ones sleep, knowing that their mourning could have been prevented? We will continue to lose sleep for as long as our elected officials refuse to take action, and you should be doing the same. Spending some time to work through comments or some collapse in solidarity in support is nothing in comparison to the time spent grieving. But the city of Raleigh can join other cities such as Richmond, California, to demand a ceasefire and the immediate entry of humanitarian aid into Gaza. You know that I care about community. I care about the way that we build connections with each other and the way that we build power together. And I'm constantly looking for ways to build connections with those through everyday conversations with my classmates, my peers, my friends, my neighbors, so that everyone I connect with knows where all of you stand. For those of you on council who have remained silent on their pain, on the pain of the Palestinian people, we see you, and your silence speaks volumes. For those who are listening in the audience, know that you hold the power to have these everyday conversations too. I know that Councilmember Black has joined us at rallies to express her support for a ceasefire, but what of the rest of you? As your constituent, and you know me well, I will not put my votes toward anyone who refuses to stand with the Palestinian community here in Raleigh and calling for a ceasefire. No ceasefire, no votes. In these times, I hold on to my community well. I live very close to the IAR, and because of that, because I've lived there, I know that every single person in this room would feed me, would clothe me, would take care of me and my family, and I will do the same for you. Ceasefire now.
Zainab.
I'm pretty sad and exhausted at this point. We've been speaking about this for a while. Everyone else has spoken. I think what we've seen is that we have money, a lot of money that's going to fund a genocide, and instead that money can be invested back into our community. I would like to point back to the HEART program. We have heard movement from council on the crisis diversion line, but we haven't heard anything about what that crisis diversion line would send to, like who would they send out to? I'm still being continuously policed. I'm still getting threatened with people calling the police on me for me going to IAR or the masjid because I'm having a mental health crisis. So I really need council to take more action on creating a unit on a HEART unit that creates a co-response team that allows a clinician, a social support person, a peer support specialist to come out when someone is experiencing a mental health crisis, because I'm tired of going to my places of worship and having the police called on me. So I'm really asking the council, one, we don't need to be funding genocide. We can take this money and put it back into our community, and we have an opportune moment right now to do that, to not only help the people of Palestine, but also to help the people of Raleigh. And specifically, I'm asking for your help because I'm living it right now. I am being continuously threatened with the police every single day of my life, and I am tired and exhausted of it. So I'm asking for your help to please move forward on this movement. Thank you.
Thank you. Hamdi Hashi. After that, we have Doha Hindi, Amna Ahmad, Dr. Elizabeth McNerney, Sarah Quandary, and Noah Hawa.
Good evening. I'd like to start off with demanding that you condemn the state of Israel for their 70-plus years of occupation, oppression, and genocide of the Palestinian people. Secondly, I ask that you condemn the state of Israel for their barbaric and torturous extermination of more than 11,000 Palestinians since October 7th. More than 11,000 people killed in 38 days. Not only killed, but ruthlessly bombed, poisoned with phosphorus, deprived of water and electricity, expelled from their homes, and many more horrific war crimes. Next, I condemn Mayor Mary Ann Baldwin, who has publicly shown her support of the crimes committed by Israel by attending and supporting a pro-Israel rally. Mayor claims, and I quote, "We must show love, support, and community as a city and nation." Where was your support when hundreds of people marched in downtown every Sunday since October 7th, calling out the genocide of Palestinians? Where's your solidarity with the citizens of Raleigh who are demanding a ceasefire and an end to billions of dollars of funding being sent to kill more Palestinians? Where is your public condemnation of the Islamophobic attacks happening across the country, as well as next door in Chapel Hill? Less than 2 years ago, you also tweeted your support and solidarity with those affected by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Is that same support and solidarity impossible to muster when the victims are Palestinian? I regret voting for you. I, along with thousands of your constituents here in Raleigh, urge you and our city council members to demand a ceasefire, to condemn the atrocities committed by Israel, to publicly support those who are fighting for a free Palestine, and to solidify your spot on the right side of history. Free, free Palestine.
Okay. Joha Hindi, are you here? And if the others could come up, please. Amna Hamad, Dr. Elizabeth McNerney, Sarah Quadri, and Noah Hawa. Thank you.
My name is Doha Hindi. I'm a Palestinian American and a resident of Raleigh. My mother, who's in the room today, is from the Showa family, a family native to Gaza. She's been a resident of Raleigh for decades. Her tax dollars, our tax dollars, were used to kill 42 members of her family. These are their names and ages. Muhammad al-Shawa, 7. Duha al-Shawa, 27. Haneen al-Shawa, 34. Dana al-Shawa, 30. Mazen al-Shawa, 87. Randa al-Shawa, 77. Dima al-Shawa, 47. Firas al-Shawa, 44. Nur al-Shawa, 38. Misk al-Shawa, 15. Sundus al-Shawa, 12. Ahmed al-Shawa, 10. Sahar al-Shawa, 43. Sujud al-Shawa, 19. Tasneem al-Shawa, 18. Zamzam al-Shawa, 17. Qamar al-Shawa, 14. Abdurrahman al-Shawa, 13. Aisha al-Shawa, 11. Hiba al-Shawa, 36. Maryam al-Shawa, 14. Al-Bara al-Shawa, 12. Yahya al-Shawa, 12. Anas al-Shawa, 9. Muna al-Shawa, 60. Sabreen al-Shawa, 35. Jannat al-Shawa, 12. Jawan al-Shawa, 10. Sama al-Shawa, 7. Azam al-Shawa, 5. Abir al-Shawa, 34. Muna al-Shawa, 9. Iman al-Shawa, 36. Ayham al-Shawa, 43. Bara al-Shawa, 13. Malak al-Shawa, 11. Rayyan al-Shawa, 3. Jihan al-Shawa, 33. Yamin al-Shawa, 12. Layla al-Shawa, 32. Iyad al-Shawa, 22. I reject the use of my tax money for the ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian people. It is illogical for us to be funding a foreign entity's military when we have so many unaddressed concerns within our own city and country. You have a moral responsibility to represent your constituents, and that involves calling for a ceasefire. Thank you.
Are any of the other speakers here that I called Amna Ahmad? I'm sorry? Okay.
My name is Noor. I'm a lifetime resident of Raleigh and an extremely proud Palestinian American and an incredibly proud member of this community. To this body, you have the ability right now to stand on the right side of history. In tens or dozens of years, Raleigh can be one of the few city councils that is able to say that it passed a resolution demanding an end to the genocide we are not only witnessing, but paying for. You have the ability to stand out strong against war and against the ongoing genocide and violence. If not, we will only be able to say that this body ignored the demands of its constituents and sat aside complicitly while tens of thousands of innocent civilians were slaughtered.
Many of us, myself included, have lost faith entirely in our elected officials and have made pledges to never engage with the democratic process again because it has disgustingly failed us. We have found that democracy alongside 12,000 innocent civilians in Gaza has been killed. Prove us wrong. Prove to us that engaging in this process can yield results. Prove to us that taking to the streets for 6 weeks in the thousands and demanding a ceasefire will not fall upon deaf ears. You may not think you have the power to stop it, or you may not think it is the place of Raleigh City Council to pass resolutions on international issues, but I urge you to remember the words of Martin Luther King Jr. when he said, "History will have to record the greatest tragedy of this period was not the strident clamor of the bad people, but the appalling silence of the good." Mayor Baldwin, after 1,200 Israelis were killed on October 7th, half or more of which were by the Israeli occupation force themselves, you immediately expressed support and have stood arm in arm with the Israeli community at pro-Israel rallies since then. 12,000 innocent Gazans are dead. Where have you been? Alongside a resolution, Mayor Baldwin, you also have gone on record on Twitter and across Raleigh spreading the claim of beheaded babies in Palestine. The journalist who originally reported this claim, the White House and the Israeli government have all walked back this claim. We expect you to do the same. I do not expect all of you to stand against the illegal occupation of Palestinian land. I know that at the end of the day, you are American politicians. What I do expect is for you to stand firmly against genocide, ethnic cleansing, and the indiscriminate slaughter of innocent men, women, and children.
Is Amna Ahmad here? Okay. Dr. Elizabeth McInerney. And what's your name?
Thank you. My name is Dr. Elizabeth McInerney, and I stand here as a concerned citizen and would like to speak from my position as a licensed psychologist who has devoted the past 15 years of my career to trauma-informed clinical care and violence prevention work. As such, I stand here deeply, deeply troubled by the silence and the lack of response that I have seen from this council. Thank you, Councilwoman Mary Black. This is a crisis which is rooted in a larger historical context of Israel's illegal occupation of Palestine since 1967, and of which the horror gets worse minute by minute. As we have sat in this room, Israeli forces have raided the Al-Shifa hospital. As a health care professional bounded by an ethical code and committed to the well-being of people, I don't have words. There are no words. My heart is breaking. I could sit here and talk to you about the literature. I am well versed in it. I will summarize it. Violence and war is awful for mental health. There is no good that comes from it. We see this time and time again, yet we do not learn, and you all here remain silent. As I speak, a Palestinian child is dying. There are children dying on our watch. I really urge you all from the bottom of my heart as a concerned citizen who here stands in solidarity with Palestine, and who also, given what I know about mental health, am deeply concerned about the souls of this community. I have treated people for moral injury, And our silence is putting the entire community of Raleigh at risk of a very, very serious condition. You have heard the voices of your community. You have seen the pain. Please wake up. Please take action. I beg you. Thank you.
Thank you. Is Sarah Quadri here? Sarah? Yeah.
My name is Sarah Quadri. I'm a resident of Raleigh. Assalamu alaikum. Peace and blessings upon you. I rewrote my speech so many times, but I don't want to reiterate the same things. We already know the deaths, and as we know, every minute a Palestinian child is dying. And not only in Gaza, but in West Bank, and other places, they're being arrested. Illegal settlers that are being armed by U.S.-made rifles are killing innocent Palestinians all across Palestine. This is not just in Gaza. And as a student of journalism, I want to point out how important word choice is and how important the lack of your solidarity, Mayor Baldwin, has been, and your complacency and your silence on not saying anything about the innocent civilians lost in Palestine. We understand it, and I am proud that I never voted for you, and I will never vote for you. And I just want to thank Councilwoman Mary Black for her continual support of the residents of Raleigh, of listening. We've been here before in many city council sessions during the Shaw rezoning and the shame that this community has done in the gentrification and how they passed that vote, even though we on our own have had Masjid King Khalid open. We are in pain for the residents of Shaw University that have lost historical buildings and have also, so much history has been lost through this gentrification, and we need to talk about that. The shame that this city, this country has on its indigenous people, on the African American people, on the Japanese Americans that were in internment, the McCarthyism, the war on terror. Why is it terror for Muslims only? Why is no other religion, when it does that, is not there? The KKK is predominantly Christian. Why don't we hear every white Christian saying, I condemn the KKK when they speak? Why are we asked to condemn? Where is your condemnation for that? Word choice matters. Our kids hear this. Our kids get bullied with this. I want you to understand, I want no one to use that term Islamophobia. No religion has a term that says they're phobic. We should never use that term. It's anti-Muslim, anti-Palestinians. Islamophobia is a propaganda, and we need to be careful. The journalists are showing propaganda of false manuals, false things saying that there was a Hamas comm center in that hospital, and it was not. Open your eyes. See the truth for what it is. There was no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, and there was nothing there in Palestine. No more tax dollars from our constituents. Over $6 million of Raleigh City is going to fund this genocide.
Sarah, your time is up. Thank you. Okay. Next we have Kia Parrish-Hom, Alexis Threadcraft, Nicole Japluk, Victor Uguzi, and Ahmad O'Day. Will the speakers come up, please? If we could have your name, please.
My name is Nicole Japluk. I'm an organizer with the Party for Socialism and Liberation. Over 300,000 people, including 8 full buses from Raleigh, mobilized to Washington, D.C. on November 4th to demand an end to all U.S. aid to Israel and to lift the siege on Gaza. This was the largest pro-Palestine action in U.S. history. Israeli Zionists have attempted to plan a similar action today in Washington, D.C., offering attendees $250 for their presence. It is a desperate attempt to drown out the hundreds of thousands of voices calling for a ceasefire and an end to the colonial occupation of Palestine. For 6 weeks straight, thousands of Raleigh residents have continuously mobilized to participate in pro-Palestine actions. In the Triangle area alone, there have been over 50 actions in support of Palestine, from student walkouts and protests on campuses of UNC, Duke, NC State, to the shutting down of representative offices led by a coalition of local organizations. This has all been part of a globally coordinated effort where millions have stood in solidarity with the Palestinian people. Actions have taken place in London, Berlin, Paris, Pakistan, Scotland, Belgium, Mexico. To list them all would take up the majority of my time. Despite the attempts to diminish our voices and numbers by most mainstream media outlets, we are here to make it clear that the people of conscience around the world unequivocally support Palestine. The people of the United States and the people of Raleigh unequivocally support Palestine. We will not sit idly by as our representatives fund and support the genocidal killing and dehumanization of Palestinians in our name. As members of City Council, as public servants, and as supposed representatives of the people of Raleigh, you all have a responsibility to denounce the ethnic cleansing, the genocide, and the indiscriminate bombing that the Israeli government is inflicting on the Palestinians. You have a responsibility to demand an immediate ceasefire and an end to all U.S. aid to Israel. You have a responsibility to take any and all actions within your power to end relations with the Israeli government. Follow the lead of Durham City Council and ban any and all collaborations between the Raleigh Police Department and Israeli Defense Forces. It is disgusting to know that the same repressive tactics used by the IDF on the Palestinians are the same tactics used to surveil black and brown communities. Divest from occupation and invest in the people's needs. We will not be silent any longer. The people of Raleigh understand that the fight for a fully liberated Palestine is intrinsically connected to the fight for our liberation and dignity in the United States. Free Palestine!
Good evening. My name is Victor. I'm an organizer with the Party for Socialism and Liberation. I came to speak today to ask that the Raleigh City Council stand in solidarity with the Palestinian people and all oppressed people around the world. Since October 7th, over 11,200 Palestinians have been murdered by the Israeli state, including family members of Palestinian Raleigh residents. Thousands more are still missing. A Raleigh Palestinian resident told me he has not been in contact with his cousin for days, and he's assuming the worst. More than 1 million people have been displaced and are suffering severe shortages of food, water, and fuel. For over a month, the world has watched the collective punishment of innocent Palestinians as Israel has dropped over 25,000 tons of explosives on the Gaza Strip, the equivalent of 2 nuclear bombs. Can you imagine that? The sheer scale of this genocide is unimaginable, and it is all being funded by our tax dollars. Our tax dollars are helping to crush humanity. Instead of using our taxes to fund education, healthcare, and housing, the state of North Carolina sends over $90 million a year to Israel. The Raleigh city budget also does not have the people's interest in mind. Millions are spent on the police, even though the majority of the people want those funds allocated to an independent crisis response team proposed by Refund Raleigh. I urge the City Council to be an example of how our tax dollars should be spent to put the needs of the people first and not to oppressive regimes. Not only should Raleigh City Council be an example of how to allocate funds for people's needs, but also take a principled stance and support Palestine. Follow the leads of other cities, like the city of Richmond in California, and put forward a ceasefire resolution. And this is the bare minimum. Let's get this right. A ceasefire is the bare minimum. You must stand on the right side of history. You must stand with the people. A majority of Americans, including those in Raleigh, want the bombing to stop now. The people demand an end to all U.S. aid to Israel, an immediate ceasefire now, and a free Palestine. Long live Palestine!
Is Kia Parrish here? Or what's your name?
Alexis Threadcraft.
Alexis Threadcraft. Okay, thank you.
Bismillah. Assalamu alaikum and good evening. My name is Alexis Threadcraft, and I'm here tonight to demand that the city of Raleigh reallocates the funds that are being used to finance Israeli military and use those funds to develop crucial community initiatives. I refuse to become complacent with the fact that my tax dollars are funding the carnage that Israel is committing upon Palestinian civilians. This did not start on October 7th. Israel is guilty of decades-long colonization, apartheid, and genocide. Israel has broken over 60 United Nations resolutions, correct me if I'm wrong, many of which the United States has actually vetoed. Ultimately, the United States has had a big hand in ensuring Israel does not face any repercussions for its war crimes. There's nothing humanitarian about Israel proposing a daily 4-hour pause from carpet bombing. What the hell does that even mean? And it's ridiculous that our government is trying to package this ongoing massacre as a lesser of two evils. Our government bets on the ignorance of its civilians to justify our contribution to this massacre. Demanding human rights for Palestinians isn't anti-Semitic. This genocide is. When you affirm your support for Israel, you support its ability to commit these atrocities. Families will continue to be destroyed. Surviving children will continue to be physically and emotionally impaired, and Palestinians will continue seeking the remains of their loved ones from the rubble. My anguish and despair has turned into disgust and anger. Frankly, I'm embarrassed that the city of Raleigh is funding a genocide overseas when we have our own wars in the community. To the city of Raleigh, I demand that you ask yourself these difficult questions. You do not have the liberty to be complacent when you are already complicit. Complacency is complicity. Thank you.
All right, is Kia Parrish Hum here or Ahmad O'Day? Okay, we'll move on to the next group then. Khaldia Yassin, Hua Huang, Dana El Hassan, Tani El Amin, Ryan Ali, Nigma Mohammed, and Leslie Kramer. If the speakers could come up, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Khaldia. I'm a North Carolina resident and a U.S. citizen. I was born in Gaza and lived there until I was 6 years old. Almost all of my extended family still lives there. My message to the council is, I hope that you never have to see your family suffer the way that my family has suffered. This past month and 75 years. I hope you never have to wake up frantically checking your phone to make sure your family is not dead or underneath the rubble of your childhood home. I hope you never have to receive a phone call telling you that your cousin was burned to death by Israeli airstrikes. I hope you never have to be forcibly displaced from your home time and time again and have to be a refugee in your own country. All I ask for you, especially you, Mayor Baldwin, is do you have the same hopes for me that I have for all of you? Do you view Palestinians as human beings worthy of life and freedom and dignity? Every single Palestinian life lost this far is avoidable and devastating. I have never felt so ashamed and disgusted to be a citizen of a country that not only blindly supports but also funds a racist, genocidal, settler colonial state that has committed countless war crimes, which they have admitted to and bragged about, all of which has resulted in a 99.4 Palestinian civilian casualty rate. My tax dollars are being used to fund the genocide of my own family. North Carolina alone gives $90 million to Israel, and Raleigh almost $7 million. That is money that could be used for us here as residents of North Carolina. I also want to remind you and every other spineless American politician, since it seems that they've forgotten that it is your duty to serve us, the citizens of this country that elected all of you. Over 66% of all American citizens are for a ceasefire, and over 300,000 people marched for a ceasefire in D.C. on November 4th. Yet our elected leaders have refused to call for one. I thought we lived in a democratic society. I demand that the Raleigh City Council passes an immediate resolution to call for a ceasefire to stop the bloodshed and end all funding to Israel. Thank you.
If we could have Dana El Hassan, Tani El Amin, Rayan Ali, Nigma Muhammad, and Leslie Kramer, please come up so we can continue speaking.
Thank you for this opportunity to speak. First, I'd like to say that I'm here speaking in solidarity with my Palestinian comrades to call for immediate ceasefire resolution. And I also want to take this chance to commend Mary Black for actually being out there to speak. I know that could be very difficult at first, but just know that you have the people behind you for speaking along with the most impacted people here, not only in Raleigh, but possibly the rest of the world. And I just also want to make note that adopting a resolution for a ceasefire is only the beginning of what you should do. I recognize that Mayor Baldwin is also a director of the Downtown Raleigh Alliance, and I would be curious to know how many businesses that Downtown Raleigh Alliance has is also supporting Israel to some extent. I'd like to know the answer. Second, I'd like to know also, because next year is campaign election, I know how to look up financial contributions of council members. So yes, that is information that we're going to continue looking. It's going to be a lot more than just saying because words are just words. Adopting ceasefire, sure, but I would like to ask that you divest from businesses that continue to support Israeli government and military, regardless of the capacity. Second, why do I stand in solidarity with Palestinians? Because you know me, I work for years with the impacted Black community here for housing justice. So when I see that, for instance, you have people coming, you have staff members talking about the armed security forces, and yet they don't have police power. Apparently, that's supposed to be the nice civil lining. But it's like, so they don't have the power to arrest, but your armed security has the power to kill? So you're basically turning downtown Raleigh into a war zone, if it's not a war zone already. So there's a parallel right there, on top of the fact that you're still, like the bus rapid transit infrastructure, the way you're forming downtown Raleigh to continue to be more and more hostile to the Black community. It's all a continuation of the racist Raleigh Redevelopment Commission that was trying to erase the Black community and Black history of Raleigh since 1958. I know what the deal is. I haven't seen any protection that you're putting over the historic Black community in Newbern Avenue or Western Boulevard Method Road for your bus rapid transit. And so I'm kind of worried because Method Road is where we have some of the biggest Muslim community there is. So what are you doing here in the city to protect the Muslim and Palestinian community here in the city? So on top of the atomic ceasefire, please also push back against gentrification.
Thank you, Hua.
In your
time's up.
Thank you.
Dana El Hassan.
My name is Rania Al-Masri. I'm speaking on behalf of Dana Al-Hassan. I'm the co-director of the North Carolina Environmental Justice Network. I did sign up to speak, except I was busy giving a talk at North Carolina State University, my alma mater, about this very topic. So I apologize for coming in late, but I am on the list. My name is Rania Masri.
I'm just asking for your name.
Thank you. Like I said, we can start the time now.
Could you tell me your name?
Rania Masri.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm the co-director of the North Carolina Environmental Justice Network, and I have to say it's a rare privilege to have a politician that represents justice and humanity, so I am honored to have Mary Black represent my district. Every morning, myself and so many of my compatriots and my community members, we wake up in fear that our beloved Palestinians in Gaza, the beloved members that we know have been slaughtered by our own taxpayer money. Every morning we mourn. And today, the Israeli army has done something so magnificent and proud. They have invaded a hospital. We call on the Raleigh City Council to stand in solidarity, not with Palestinians, but to stand in solidarity with justice, with humanity, with decency, by calling for something that by God should not be controversial, by calling for a ceasefire. We're asking the Raleigh City Council to join Richmond, California, and Scarborough, North Carolina, in calling for a ceasefire. Let's be very clear. The immediate plan for peace must start with an immediate ceasefire. We do not want talk of peace. We want it to be clear. An immediate ceasefire is the start, and it should not be controversial. Not calling for a ceasefire is silent support for genocide, and I use that term legally. Genocide scholars have reviewed statements by Israeli government officials, and they are clear. Israeli government officials have espoused genocidal intent when they say that they will turn Gaza into rubble, that the emphasis is on damage and not on accuracy, that there will be no electricity, no food, no fuel, when they call Palestinians human animals. These are all statements calling for genocide. So, not calling for a ceasefire is silent support of a genocide. My question for you, how many more Palestinian children have to be killed before the weapons manufacturers in the United States deem that the advertisements are enough for them to sell more weapons? How many more children? Give us a number. How many more? It is Palestinian children that have been beheaded by US bombs. It is Palestinian children that have been suffocated of thirst and hunger. 17 years of blockade in Gaza, war after war after war for 17 years, all without any accountability. We are asking you to do what is democratic, not what is controversial. 5,000 Raleigh residents have protested every week, and we vote, and we remember in November. We are asking you to show us what democracy looks like. You call for that ceasefire resolution, and you will restore a little bit of our faith in democracy. You do not call for that ceasefire resolution, and we will remember your vote come November.
Thank you.
Yes, my name is Tani El Imam. I'm an American, but I'm a proud mother of 4 beautiful Palestinian women. And I'm also the grandmother of 3 beautiful Palestinian grandchildren. I'm here to talk to you about the events in Gaza and the occupied territory of the West Bank. Since October 7th, the Israeli government has systematically carried out an ethnic cleansing operation against the Palestinian people in Gaza. Settlers in the West Bank are armed with guns and fully backed and supported by the Israelis' IDF soldiers in brutalizing the Palestinians. From 2010 to 2016, I resided in the country of Jordan, where I taught 1st and 2nd grade children. 90% of my students, I will say that number again, 90% of my students came from families whose grandparents or great-grandparents were victims of the displacement during the 1948 ethnic cleansing that the IDF initiated against the indigenous population of Palestine. I grew to deeply love these children who were full of life and had hopes and dreams of becoming doctors, engineers, teachers, and even astronauts. Since October 7th, over 4,104 children in Gaza are dead now. Their hopes and their dreams, all of it, lay dead with them under the rubble of their bombed homes, hospitals, and schools. Premature babies now are dead in hospitals because their incubators stopped working. They were too young to even get started on their dreaming and their hoping. They are people. They are not animals. Last week, my 7-year-old granddaughter, who was born in Raleigh and is in the audience here tonight, said to me, "Grandma, I don't want to be an American anymore. Americans send money to Israel to kill Palestinians. I don't want to be an American." I did not know how to respond to her. Make no mistake, our children are watching what our response to the cry for help for the children in Gaza will be. I am here to ask this council to demand a ceasefire in Gaza and to cut the millions of dollars in funding coming from the state of North Carolina to the Israeli military in order to stop this horrific genocide. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is Rayan Ali Nigam Mohammed or Leslie Kramer here.
Hello, my name is Rayan. I, like many of us here, have spent my whole life learning and understanding the struggle for freedom and liberation of my people. Brutal settler colonialism, illegal occupation, white supremacy, fascism, and the Zionist ideology are what the terrorist state of Israel was founded on. The farthest back murder of my family members by IOF, offensive forces, not defense forces, that I can trace currently are my paternal great-great-grandparents in 1948 during the Nakba, the catastrophe in Arabic. They were slaughtered along with 15,000 plus Palestinians as they fled, with nearly 1 million others being forcefully and illegally displaced from their homes. My maternal grandmother, who passed away earlier October, Allah yarhamha, was born and raised in Gaza and moved to America in the 80s. In 2014, she watched her family's house in Gaza be leveled by bombs live on television. This didn't start October 7th. Over 20 family members were murdered, a child younger than 2, a body so badly mutilated it could be only identified by a hand. A lifetime of trauma for the remaining family members. This past month has been the reality for Palestinians for the past 75 years, and this month. Having to show pictures and videos of our dead children to prove and explain to the world that the Palestinian struggle for the past 75 years is real is the most dehumanizing thing we have all experienced. Hundreds of billions of our tax dollars fund the Israeli government and IOF. When we are told that we don't have the funds for free health care, remember we pay for free health care for all Israeli citizens, free education for all Israeli citizens. We don't have livable wages, maternity leave, or health care that is good for all of our citizens. The list goes on. Instead, our money is sent abroad in aid of war crimes and the killing and displacement of the Palestinian people. How many more Palestinians have to be murdered for you to wake up? I mean it when I say we will never forget who stood silent in the face of oppression. Mayor Baldwin, you sit here half the time looking down at your phone. Are you watching the thousands of videos of mutilated children, the brutalization carried out by IDF on the Palestinians in both the West Bank and Gaza? IDF has used this focus on Gaza to intensify their brutality on the West Bank. Don't forget them. Are you just going to ignore our calls for a ceasefire? You will have no votes. Watch.
Could we start with your name, please?
Najwa Mohammed.
I can't hear.
Najwa Mohammed.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Najwa Mohammed, and I'm here to ask this council to stand behind its Palestinian citizens in demanding an immediate ceasefire of Israel's relentless bombardment of Gaza, and to demand an end to all American financial and military aid in Israel. What has unfolded over the past month is an unprecedented humanitarian catastrophe, and the blood of my people are on your hands. This vicious airstrike has indiscriminately targeted hospitals, UN schools, ambulances, refugee camps, and aid trucks in Gaza. The collective punishment on the world's largest concentration camp has killed more than 12,000 innocent civilians. Thousands of those were children and internationally protected journalists and medical personnel. Let's call this atrocity what it really is: the genocide of an indigenous people, the ethnic cleansing of a native from their ancestral lands, the Zionist supremacy and colonialism, Israeli state-sanctioned terrorism. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? It's the foundation of our own country. We have learned nothing as a people. For nearly a century, Palestinians have been dehumanized. The generational trauma of the Nakba and the continuous slaughter and siege bombardment since Israel's inception continues to reverberate through each and every Palestinian from West Bank to Gaza. As a Palestinian child, I lived within those walls and wired electric fences. I walked the segregated pathways. I've stared down the barrels of automatic weapons pointed in my face. I was subjected to abuse by the Israeli Defense Forces numerous times inside my home, at school, and at checkpoints. I witnessed the brutal murder and mutilation of a 15-year-old boy whose only crime was throwing stones at an army jeep. I'm disgusted and exhausted of seeing fathers collecting the pieces of their children and hearing the mothers scream in terror at their unimaginable loss. Our government cannot continue to slaughter and abuse people all over the Middle East and Africa, creating enemies, expanding military control, and stealing resources, then paint themselves as the champions of democracy and freedom. The public is waking. We are seeing past the propaganda. We are the children and grandchildren of Palestinians forced into diaspora, and we will never forget. We ask that our city representatives stand with us against abhorrent, systematic oppression of Palestinian people. Your constituents are demanding to be heard. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Leslie Kramer, and I'm sure you are all tired of hearing about Palestine at this point, but don't worry, rest assured, they're probably tired of bombs being dropped on their houses too. So I'm here to talk to you tonight about the children of Gaza. When I was 2 years old, I began studying the shapes of the 50 states. I was so happy when I finally learned each of them. I had not begun to know anything about life, but I would one day get that opportunity, unlike 2-year-old Sena from Gaza. And her family described her as wise beyond her years. But she'll never get to find out if she truly was, because she's never going to get to grow old, because US-funded Israeli airstrikes killed her. When I was 8 years old, I went on field trips with my mother to a beautiful farm in the countryside, where I have some of my happiest memories, but I still got the chance to make more. Unlike 8-year-old Karim, who didn't have the chance to play with his PlayStation games anymore because US-funded Israeli airstrikes murdered him. When I was 13 years old, I started 8th grade at a completely brand new school, and that was the year I marched with March for Our Lives right down there in Moore Square. I marched for environmental activism, and that was the year I learned the power of standing together. And 13-year-old Yuni Aldous, whose heart and drive for justice were bigger than his growing YouTube channel, never got the chance to change the world because US-funded Israeli airstrikes murdered him. When I was 15 years old, I had lost my way, feeling isolated, unloved, and like a monster. But I was shown love and support, and because of that, I got to continue to learn to love this life. The kind of support I received is what 15-year-old Sahaib al-Sos showed to everyone he met. He volunteered locally all the time, and he distributed iftar meals during Ramadan. But he will never get to have another Ramadan. And the life I learned to love will never again belong to 15-year-old Muhammad, who will never again run around the grass playing soccer because US-funded Israeli airstrikes murdered them both. I am 19 now. I am studying music and sociology in college, and I cannot wait to change the world and to help others, just like 19-year-old Bisan wanted to do as she embarked on her 3rd year of medical school. Just like 19-year-old Khalil Abu Shayab wanted to change the world for his mother, he established a prayer website for her after she passed. Just like 20-year-old Fafa Hisham Jaifel and 19-year-olds Hala Al-Farah and Rusol, they all dreamed of changing the world with their programming skills as they studied it in college. And I'm sure Rusol, who loved birds, by the way, would have loved the presentation I got to give on them last week if US-funded Israeli airstrikes hadn't murdered her first, hadn't murdered Khalil, Hala. We are too late to save the dreams of the almost 4,500 Palestinian children who have been murdered by US-funded Israeli airstrikes, but we are not too late for the rest of them. If you do not want to continue funding the destruction of these children's dreams, then I would like you to imagine, free Palestine.
Thank you. Call up the next group of names: Miriam Sanjak, Laura Muhammad, Benny Koval, Lama Wafa, and Irene Ko. If you could all come up, please.
Hello. My name is Lara. Since the beginning of this session, we've given you the facts, we've given you the statistics, we've given you reasons to treat Palestinians as humans. Will you find your conscience, and will you find it urgently? As the news carries images of premature Palestinian babies laid out to wait death in the dark while Israeli troops attack the last functioning hospitals in Gaza, I ask, when will you act? We won't be deterred by dismissals like this is too complex, this is uncomfortable, we have to be hesitant. It's the hesitancy that I can't begin to wrap my mind around. I can't understand the reluctance to endorse a ceasefire. You have the ability to save thousands of lives. This issue should transcend political debate. It's a matter of humanity. I'm beginning to question if our politicians and civil servants have any left. A statement of sympathy for Palestinian bodies in mass graves, but not Palestinian liberation, will not change the fatal consequences of a refusal to call for ceasefire. It will not mask your complicity in the ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian people. The least you can do as a representative of our city is back a ceasefire. So I ask again, will you find your conscience, and will you find it urgently? As city council members, you are dedicated to creating spaces for not just Palestinian voices, but for all who stand in solidarity against genocide, occupation, and apartheid. You will find a majority of Raleigh wants a ceasefire, and the silencing of those voices only contributes to fear and hatred. The Palestinian writer Ghassan Kanafani said the Palestinian cause is not a cause for Palestinians only, but a cause for every revolutionary. He reminds us that none of us are free until all of us are free. To this point, the Asian Solidarity Collective and Publishers for Palestine state, as we fight for a free Palestine, we are recognizing how Palestine weaves our struggles together. Palestinians have resisted land theft and expulsion, a militarized police and occupation force, unchecked surveillance and incarceration, the U.S. military-industrial complex, and the doctrine of white supremacy to provide moral cover for it all. We must amplify what Palestine is to black and brown liberation and reconnect our people with a long tradition of global solidarity for Palestine. Now is the time to intensify our support for ceasefire and Palestinian liberation. Now is the time to build solidarity to collectively refuse intimidation, repression, fear, and violence. Now is the time. So I ask one more time, the last time, will you find your conscience, and will you find it urgently? Thank you.
Excuse me. Was her name Laura or Lama? Just wanted to ask, was your name Laura or Lama? Okay, thank you.
Shalom, my name is Benny. I'm a resident of Raleigh, here among so many others that stand with the, among so many others here demanding that city council stand with the people, not the developers, police, or forces of imperialism. From Gaza City to Southeast Raleigh, we all resist racist occupation and pressure city council to do the same. Over the past 6 weeks, thousands of protesters have gathered in downtown Raleigh calling for a free Palestine, an end to U.S. aid to Israel, to lift the siege on Gaza, and a military ceasefire. City Council now has the opportunity to represent the residents of Raleigh with a resolution calling for a military ceasefire to end the genocidal bombardment on Gaza by American-funded Israeli forces. Join the Carborough City Council, which passed a ceasefire resolution tonight, as we were here. 37 days of colonial terrorism has martyred more than 11,000 Palestinians, with thousands more missing under the rubble. 30,000 have been injured. Most of Gaza's hospitals are not functional due to the bombardment and fuel restrictions from the siege. 60 ambulances have been attacked. 53% of housing units in Gaza have been destroyed. Bakeries and water filtration infrastructure has been bombed. The Palestinians of Gaza are dehydrated and starving. Our tax dollars are funding the apartheid settler state of Israel to the tune of $4 billion a year, plus Genocide Joe asked for another $14.5 billion recently. I want to uplift what a Palestinian resident of Raleigh said up here earlier, that Palestinians are being unjustly punished for the crimes of European anti-Semitism. Gaza is a concentration camp. The Zionist forces are now trying to turn it into an extermination camp. It is clear that Zionism and Nazism are two wings of the same bird. Today, that militarized bird polices the world. That bird is an American bald eagle. It is imperialism. It is global white supremacy. The occupation of Palestine is this is the United States' 75-year-old occupation of Palestine, just as much as it is Israel's. So as residents in the belly of the beast, we must fight the genocide at every level, including at City Council. In 2017, former Raleigh Police Chief Cassandra Deck Brown participated in a training program in Israel. City Council, we call on you to commit to no future collaboration with the Israeli occupation forces. In 2018, Durham became the first city to end all police exchange programs with Israel. Raleigh must do the same. The police exchanges represent a relationship between two racist, oppressive forces teaching each other how to most effectively beat on their oppressed and colonized populations. Demilitarizing and divesting from policing is the only way for the city to invest in real community safety. The U.S. and the Israeli police are both racist occupying forces. This year, City Council approved a $6.5 million increase for the Raleigh Police Department, bringing our city's total contribution up to $130 million. That money goes towards the surveillance of immigrant neighborhoods, the racist occupation of Free Palestine.
Thank you. Is Miriam Sanjak, Lama Wafa, or Irene Ko here? If anybody else is here, if you could come up. So, okay. Give your name, please.
I'm Irene Cho.
Can't hear you.
Irene Cho. I know it's been a long night, so I want to thank each of the council members for your time and for listening to us. I want you all to take a moment to think of your family, to think of the faces of your grandparents, your parents, your aunts and uncles who raised you, your siblings, your cousins. I want you to think of the faces of your children. And now I want you to imagine them all dead, murdered by indiscriminate airstrikes, murdered for the crime of being born in an open-air prison, murdered for the crime of being born in the land of their ancestors. Can you imagine that pain? Can you imagine that suffering? I want you to think of the child you love most in this world. I want you to imagine their face, their voice, their laughter. I want you to think of them, their cries. I want you to think of them screaming in pain as they are stuck under rubble, crying for someone to rescue them, but there is no one to save them.
Get off your phone!
There are more than 11,000 Palestinians dead, murdered by Israeli occupying forces. There are more than 3,000 stuck under rubble. These are not just numbers. These are people. Each Palestinian life is a whole universe lost. These are people, and we have to call for an immediate ceasefire now. And a ceasefire is only the first step. This Israeli occupation has been going on for 75 years. The suffering has continued for so long, and we must call for an end to settler colonialism and apartheid now. I'm here to ask that the council follow the precedent set by Richmond, California, and Carrboro, NC, to call for a ceasefire resolution, and to follow the precedent of Durham, North Carolina, and end all exchanges with the IOF. I ask that the council divest from militarization of the police and invest in community. I ask that the council stand against genocide and the ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian people and stand against settler colonialism. Free Palestine.
Is Miriam Sanjak or Lama Waf here?
Lama.
Okay.
Members of the City Council, I stand before you today as a representative of the Party for Socialism and Liberation, urging you to not only consider the global struggles for justice, but also the pressing issues within our city of Raleigh, North Carolina. Our solidarity within the Palestinian people is rooted in a commitment to dismantle oppressive struggles globally. Yet as we discuss these matters, we cannot ignore the struggles faced by our Black and brown communities right here in Raleigh. Take, for instance, the impacts of gentrification in historically Black neighborhoods like Southeast Raleigh. Just like the zoning that you guys passed a couple of months ago to remove the Muslim mosque from Southeast Raleigh, where rising poverty values displace long-standing residents, eroding the fabric of these communities. Affordable housing is just not a theoretical concern. It's a lived reality for many in Raleigh. Consider the struggles of the residents in the South Park neighborhood, where gentrification pressures have led to increased housing costs, pushing out working class families. Our commitment to socialism requires addressing these local injustices. Raleigh school system disparities also mirror the global struggle for education access. In predominantly Black and brown neighborhoods, schools often lack the resources available to their counterparts, perpetuating an unjust cycle. As we stand in solidarity with the people of Palestine, we must also stand with our Black and brown comrades here at home. Raleigh's history of redlining and discriminatory housing practices has had lasting effects, restricting economic opportunities for Black and brown residents. Our vision is one where all residents, regardless of their background, can thrive in a city actively working to eradicate the vestiges of imperialism and capitalist exploitation. Raleigh can set an example as a community dedicating to creating a more just and equitable society. In conclusion, I urge the Raleigh City Council to join us in the collective effort. I urge you to support a ceasefire resolution following the lead of Carborough. And I urge you to support Refund Raleigh's independent crisis response proposal. Let us recognize that the struggles for Palestinian liberation, Black liberation, brown liberation, and Native liberation are interconnected and must be addressed comprehensively. Real change starts at home, and Raleigh has the opportunity to lead the way. I was going to say thank you, but I'll hold the thank you until there's a free Palestine. And I will see a free Palestine in my lifetime.
Okay, I'm going to call the final group. Waleed El-Hentai, Samir Chima, Everline Omari, Nigel Edwards, Asma Abu Dahab, Eugene Myrick, and Laura Frey.
While those folks are coming to the podium, Madam City Manager, we've heard a lot of references tonight around how elements of the city budget might be directly or indirectly going toward Israel and the IDF. I wonder if you all could do a deep dive on our financials and look at anything that might be connected, even by orders of separation, and bring that back to us in a little bit.
So call the names again: Waleed El-Hentai, Tali, Samir Chima, Everline Omari, Nigel Edwards, Asma Abu Daba, Eugene Myrick, and Lauren Frey. If you could come up and give your name, please.
All right. I'm Lauren Frey. I was born and raised in Raleigh, and I'm one of many Jewish people in the city, the state, the country, and the world who stand against Zionism and condemn the decades-long Israeli occupation of Palestine. I'm here today in solidarity with my community to demand that the City Council pass a resolution condemning the ongoing genocide against Palestinians and call for an immediate ceasefire. While we've been in this room together, the Carborough Town Council just got this done. My great-grandfather was one of 12 children, and he was one of only 2 who escaped from and survived the horrors of the Holocaust. My Jewish ancestry and upbringing taught me the values of fighting for social justice and fighting against nationalism, racism, and colonization. Over the past month, the Israeli military has dropped bombs on Palestinian homes, schools, roads, and hospitals, and has killed more than 11,000 people, including more than 4,000 children. When we as Jews say never again, we mean never again for anyone. Never again includes Palestinians, and never again is now. Here today, you see hundreds of people in Raleigh whose sentiments represent those of millions of protesters around the world who cannot remain silent while Israel enacts ethnic cleansing. People are taking to the streets to disrupt life as usual, to do anything we can to stop the deaths, stop the violence, and we will not give up until there is a ceasefire. Do not underestimate your role as our city council members in fighting for justice. What you do matters. The city has the power to proactively establish a policy now to prevent any Raleigh police officers from being sent to Israel to be trained and learn from the horrific tactics of the Israel Defense Forces. Though these demands, and to reiterate, they are to pass a resolution calling for an immediate ceasefire and establish a policy to keep Raleigh PD and the IDF separate. Though these demands are important, they are not enough. The city should be preparing to transform our city budget as we know it. Instead of investing over $100 million of our city dollars into the Raleigh police, we should be investing that money into the people. It should fund affordable housing, accessible public transportation, and livable wages. The city needs a mental health crisis response unit that is completely independent of the police, that will operate out of principles of care and not punishment. Ultimately, your courage in this moment is critical. I hope you'll join the two-thirds of Americans in support of a ceasefire. The people of Raleigh are not free until Palestinians are free. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Samir Chima. I want to talk to you about a physician, Dr. Hammam Alo, a renowned nephrologist. He was asked to flee south, as were countless others, but he was a physician working in Al-Shifa Hospital. And he said, "I can't even think of not going. I don't have an option, because if I don't go, this means I'm giving up on life. I took an oath as a physician, and I will not betray that oath," he said. "We have the right, just like you, to live in peace and freedom. Help us get this. Otherwise, you'll need to revise the definition of humanity and your humanity." He was murdered, along with his wife and 3 children. Their lives, their hopes, their destinies cruelly snuffed out in an instant. But they're not alone. Over 11,000 more have been murdered, their names sometimes scribbled on their bodies or what's left of them and buried in mass graves. Each one possessed a unique identity. Each one nurtured dreams of greatness, and each one brimmed with the promise of a bright tomorrow. It's an outrage. It's an outrage that demands our anger, our outrage, and our united voices thundering from the depths of our souls. How long will you continue to be complicit in the empowerment of those who play the role of oppressor while masquerading as victims? The time has come, my friends, to turn our backs on this twisted dance and reclaim our justice. O City of Raleigh, hear our plea. We implore you to summon the courage, the righteous fury, and the unwavering determination to denounce this grotesque cycle of bloodshed. How many more must fall? How much innocent blood must stain the streets before we call for a ceasefire from the city of Raleigh? Free, free Palestine.
Free, free Palestine!
Good evening. My name is Nigel Edwards, and I'm here today on behalf of the Muslim American Public Affairs Council, one of many wonderful organizations I'm a member of. And I had a conversation with one of our members, Khurr Zarour, who is also an appointee to the Raleigh's Hispanic and Immigrant Affairs Board. And after a conversation with Councilmember Patton, he thought of a proposed resolution that the city can offer and adopt. Now, today is about eliminating the excuses. When it comes to not knowing what's going on, we've had plenty of people inform the public and the world of the current humanitarian crisis in Palestine and in Gaza specifically. So that's no longer an excuse that we didn't know. And when it comes to what we want, we've given a concrete demand, a resolution calling for the end to these hostilities, calling for a ceasefire. And we're going one step further by offering a draft of that resolution, a draft I emailed to every single one of you just a few minutes ago. It's not perfect, but it reads as follows. We at the City of Raleigh City Council pride ourselves in our vibrantly diverse community here in Raleigh, Wake County, and the state of North Carolina. We condemn the horrifying loss of life and kidnapping of Israelis. However, we also must face the growing humanitarian crisis being created by the Israeli government's indiscriminate pounding of the Palestinian Gaza Strip. In such a densely populated urban area, the cost of civilian life and suffering is inherently exorbitant. Thus far, the debasing war has resulted in over 13,000 Palestinian deaths, many thousands missing, and hundreds of thousands displaced with no refuge. While we will never turn our back on our Jewish community, we must also consider the heartache, loss of family, and fear of the future of our vibrant Muslim and Christian Palestinian neighbors who bring so much to the fabric of our lives here in Wake County and beyond. We acknowledge the trauma and concerns of the aforementioned communities. We acknowledge the standards set forth under international law with respect to the armed conflicts that are currently occurring. We hope for a true and lasting peace in Israel and Palestine. We urge the Biden administration to impose an immediate ceasefire, allowing much-needed humanitarian aid while creating a safe avenue for the release of the hostages and prisoners and a return home of American citizens trapped by these hostilities. We are confident that every North Carolinian's heart seeks a true and just peace in this region that is so dear to many of us. Therefore, we, the Raleigh City Council, present our resolution that the Biden administration ardently pushes the Netanyahu government for an immediate ceasefire as implored by the United Nations, the majority of nations around the world, and numerous humanitarian groups. It's just a draft, but we've gone a step farther, making your job even more easier for you. So I say today there are no excuses to what is going on. We can't make changes to what is going on over there, perhaps. But many people in our government, when it came to apartheid South Africa and our response to that regime, they did nothing during that time. And I wonder how they feel now looking back. I hope you all don't understand how they feel either. Thank you.
Thank you. The remaining names I have are Waleed, Elhan Tali, Everline Omari, and Asma Abu Jahab, and Eugene Myrick. Any of the folks here?
Silence is consent. My name is Eugene Myrick, Southeast Raleigh resident, and once again, silence is consent. I had no idea that Raleigh was sending money to Israel. That's absurd. Especially considering that this is considered a part-time job. It's nothing part-time about this. Once you start making billion-dollar decisions with these developers, billion-dollar developments, $100 million developments, there's no part-time. Raleigh is no longer a small city. Considering the growing number of unhoused, the number of mentally ill on the streets, once again, Raleigh has no business sending money overseas. Just like I stood with the Muslim community when my alma mater, Shaw University, wrongfully discriminated against them by locking them out of the mosque, forcing them to pray on the sidewalk with their children. 5 of you still voted for that discrimination. Shaw's gentrification disguised as rezoning. I stand with the people of Palestine as they simply want the right to exist. If this city council does not call for a ceasefire, you will be on the wrong side of history. Once again, silence is consent. You know, it was just so much going on tonight. Just to go into other concerns, you know. Somebody once told me that God answers all prayers, but sometimes he says no. Some other people have a right to say no, is you all. When these developers come to you wanting to go from 5 stories to 12 stories to 30 stories to 40 stories, you can simply say no. You say, well, we don't have a right to ask them to include affordable housing. You don't have to ask, just say no. If they know that they're going to come here and try to take a rezoning from 5 stories to 40 stories, and there's no adequate affordable housing in there, if they know you're going to say no, they will not bring it to the table. So you have a right to say no. Another concern, once again, I'm confused that Raleigh would be sending money overseas. You know, we have neighborhoods where people don't have sidewalks. You have people, it was already mentioned, standing at bus stops with no shelter, no seats, but Raleigh is sending money overseas. I'm totally confused about that. With the BRT coming, bus rapid transit, again,
Thank you.
free Palestine.
Is Waleed, Everline, or Asma here? Okay. Then that was our last speaker for this evening.
Before we close the meeting, I just want us to take a moment to sit in the depth of everything we have heard tonight over the last almost 4 hours. I want to thank everyone who spoke, to everyone who raised their voice for conscience, humanitarian action, who spoke to the intersectionality of issues both here and abroad, and who shared the names of loved ones lost in Gaza, and those who called specifically for a ceasefire. I think it's appropriate at this time to ask the city attorney to look into the resolution that Carborough passed tonight, urging for an immediate ceasefire. That was shared with us, and I ask that she please bring back some language by our next city council meeting.
I would also ask that they look at what was presented tonight and emailed to us and was read. So if you can look at that and perhaps even look at what other communities have done, just do some more research.
And we'll be back next week.
Okay. So that is the city attorney and also working with the city manager. Yes. Okay. All right. Thank you. And thank you everyone for being here. Meeting is now adjourned.